Chapter 24:19. I met Lan Qingyan, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen's expression couldn't help but change. What happened? He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang hated Lan Qingyan, but he didn't expect the two to meet so soon. Once they met, it wouldn't end well. At that time, I was refining elixirs. Lan Qingyan asked me to hand over the identity token and elixirs to them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. After interacting with Lan Qingyan, she had a better understanding of Lan Qingyan, but she was even more disdainful of Lan Qingyan. She would definitely trample this kind of person under her feet. After the Battle of Zhuolu ended, she would gradually appear in front of the Lan family. Then you two fought. Di Beichen knew Bailey Hongzhuang's character very well. Even if it was someone else who said this to Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not let it go. Moreover, this person was Lan Qingyan? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Baisher is more powerful. He crippled one of Lan Qingyan's hands. Her identity token also fell into my hands. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang took out Lan Qingyan's identity token. A smile appeared on her lips. Di Beichen was also stunned when he saw this identity token. He knew that Lan Qingyan's strength had probably reached the 7th level of the Blue Realm. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was actually able to obtain Lan Qingyan's identity token. This was a little too surprising. He was originally worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would be at a disadvantage after meeting Lan Qingyan. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to be wronged, and he didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to be wronged because of Lan Qingyan. All these years, Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered enough because of Lan Qingyan. However, he did not expect his wife to be so powerful. The first time she came into direct contact with Lan Qingyan, she had already snatched Lan Qingyan's identity token. I didn't expect my wife to be so powerful. Di Beichen gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. His wife was really capable. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin proudly. Of course, it's been so many years. I'm no longer that helpless baby. It's time for things to change. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly thought of something and asked, Beichun, what is the relationship between Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian? Ouyang Etian? Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. The relationship between the Lan family and the Ouyang family has always been quite close. Ever since we caused a ruckus at the Yu family a few days ago, there's been some animosity between the Lan family and the Yu family. On the contrary, the Lan family is getting closer and closer to the Ouyang family. According to the information I received, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian are likely to become a family. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. So that's how it is. You met Ouyang Etian. If it wasn't for Ouyang Etian's appearance, Lan Qingyan would have died in my hands. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light. Very quickly, she revealed a relieved expression. However, this is also good. Lan Qingyan can still be my stepping stone. Back then, Lan Qingyan had stepped on her body to become the future head of the Lan family. In a few days, she would step on Lan Qingyan's body to take back everything that belonged to her. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hide anything from Di Beichun. Instead, she told him everything that had happened. Chapter 24:20. After knowing that Mo Yunjue had once again helped Bailey Hongzhuang resolve the crisis, Di Beichun's eyes changed slightly, his expression unfathomable. It seems that I really should thank Mo Yunjue. Ever since the Yu clan's incident, Di Beichen no longer opposed Mo Yunjue as before. Instead, he admired him a little more. Di Beichen didn't admire many people in his life, and there were even fewer people of the same generation. However, Mo Yunjue was one of the people he admired, because Mo Yunjue was a true gentleman. Even though Shirtian Tower was a hidden and dark existence in the eyes of many people, Mo Yunjue was indeed a true gentleman who acted openly and above board. As a man himself, he was very clear about Mo Yunjue's feelings towards Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Mo Yunjue had never stepped in from the beginning to the end. Just this point alone was enough to make him admire him. With Mo Yunjue's level of excellence, if he also participated, he would probably be a formidable opponent. And now, He also respected the friendship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. If Yunjue didn't appear, then it would be a lot more troublesome. We have to thank him properly. Di Beichun touched Bailey Hongzhuang's head, his eyes slightly narrowed. Wife, Mo Yunjue is very good, but in your heart, you have to remember that I am the best. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile. That will depend on how you perform. Wife, don't worry, I will definitely perform well. Di Beichun patted his chest. With a look of wife, just watch how I perform, which made Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. The next moment, Di Beichun took the identity card from his waist and said, Wife, since you are here, I naturally have to present this identity card with both hands. For him, nothing was more important than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this identity card was related to the results of Tiangang's sect, he wanted to pamper Bailey Hongzhuang more. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun's actions and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A faint and charming smile appeared on her lips. Are you sure you want to give this identity card to me? Di Beichun blinked his charming eyes. My whole body belongs to you, not to mention this identity card. Looking at Di Beichun's funny look, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Di Beichun, you are really the most thick-skinned person I have ever seen. So I think I'm the one you love the most. Di Beichun shrugged his shoulders. He was not ashamed, but rather proud of it. Okay, you're right. Bailey Hongzhuang was helpless for a while, but many times because you like this person, no matter what he does, you will like it. Beichun, you should keep this identity card. Bailey Hongzhuang took her identity card. I will give you my identity card. Wife. Di Beichun frowned, but Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation followed. With my strength, I've already done my best to get to this point. If the opponent who appears now is not you, I am afraid I will fail in this game. If you give me the identity medallion, I will only fail in the next round of the competition. If you continue to challenge, you will be able to get more identity cards. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a bright and moving smile. She had absolute confidence in Di Beichun's strength. Even Ouyang Etienne would not be Di Beichun's opponent. Chapter 24-21. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was mischievous as she smiled sweetly at Di Beichun. Di Beichun raised his brows and said, Please speak, my wife. I'm asking you to fight on my behalf, and we'll split the rewards equally. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin, and her expression was smug and arrogant. You have to return my identity token to me. Once she said this, Di Beichun's handsome and elegant face could not help but break into a brilliant smile, revealing his white and neat teeth. So I'm fighting on your behalf. What? You're not convinced? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes like a cat waiting for an opportunity to strike. As long as Di Beichun dared to say anything, she would immediately explode. Di Beichun quickly shook his head and stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and silky hair affectionately. How would I dare? Since I'm fighting on your behalf, all the rewards naturally belong to my wife. My wife, just you wait, your husband will obtain a few more identity tokens for you. Bailey Hongzhuang's coquettishness was fatal to Di Beichun, and he was willing to do anything for her. However, he also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had said this because she wanted him to accept the identity token without any psychological burden. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were very reasonable. It would be best if they could obtain as many identity tokens as possible. Based on the current time of the Battle of Zhuolu, even if he made it to the end, the Battle of Zhuolu should not be over yet. The Tiangang sect's reputation has long resounded throughout the mainland. Even if they did not perform well in this Battle of Zhuolu, it did not mean much. However, his wife wanted to use this opportunity to make a name for herself. As her husband, he naturally had to do his part. He wanted everyone to know that Bailey Hongzhuang was his woman. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. Good luck, I'll wait for you outside. Di Beichun reached out his hand and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang over, planting another kiss on her lips. We've just met, and we're about to part again. I really can't bear to part with my wife. Bailey Hongzhuang puffed up her cheeks. She had always been bullied by Di Beichun's shameless actions. This was not in line with her character. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang stood on her tiptoe and pecked Beichin on the lips. I can't bear to part with you, humph. However, after doing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's back, Bailey Hongzhuang's back, Bailey Bailes's sheezes, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailes. His Hongzhuang's S and S's, her. Looks like I should hurry up and marry her. After Bailey Hongzhuang handed over her identity token, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a wave of energy wrap around her. Then, she disappeared into the light screen. The three beasties are naturally with Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, they were curious about where they would go if they failed. Now they understood. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw everything in front of her again, she realized that she was still underground. However, there was a small hall in front of her, and there was still a light screen in front of her. The light screen was currently in a closed state. It was obvious that it had not been opened. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that there would be another competition after she failed? Young Palace Master. Joyful voices rang out behind Bailey Hongzhuang. They sounded very familiar to Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 24-22. So everyone is here. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone in surprise. She was still worried about how to meet up with everyone after leaving this place. She didn't expect to meet everyone the moment she came out. This gave her a pleasant surprise. When everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had arrived, a smile appeared on their faces. It was as if they had seen a relative that they hadn't seen for a long time. The joy of reunion filled everyone's heart. Previously, when everyone walked into a different passage, everyone was a little afraid. After all, they didn't know what they were going to face next. They also didn't know when they would be able to reunite with their teammates. But now, it seemed that they were worried for nothing. This underground arena had already arranged everything for them, so they didn't need to worry at all. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at everyone. Including her, there were a total of 8 cultivators. There were still 2 disciples who hadn't appeared. Long Xianjing noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze and took the lead to explain. Young Palace Master, after we lost the competition, we came here. As time passed, more and more people gathered here. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She immediately understood. It seems that everyone will come here after the competition. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the light screen. She was already very familiar with this light screen. Before they met the corresponding conditions, it was impossible for them to leave this light screen. Let's wait until everyone is gathered, and then we can leave. Everyone nodded. They also felt that this should be the case. How's everyone's harvest? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at everyone. The total number of identity cards that everyone obtained was the result of Limitless Palace. Everyone reported their results to Bailey Hongzhuang. Long Xianjing and the other disciples who were stronger naturally obtained more identity cards. As for the weaker disciples, they came out earlier. However, overall, Limitless Palace's results were still very good. However, during this process, Bailey Hongzhuang faintly felt that something was wrong. In that case, Yin Aoshuang was the third last to come out, Long Xianjing was the second last, and I was the last to come out. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Although they didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang asked this question, they still nodded. It was indeed a good idea. As for the other 2 disciples, how many matches do you think they can last? The strength of the opponents encountered by the other disciples naturally couldn't be compared to the opponents encountered by Bailey Hongzhuang, but their strength was definitely not weak. If they hadn't come out by now, it meant that they had participated in the competition more times than Bailey Hongzhuang. This seemed a little strange. Hearing this, the expressions of Long Xianjing and the others changed. Their expressions became unsightly. Young Palace Master, what do you mean? Yin Ao Shuang immediately understood and could not help but ask in a low voice. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say anything. She just looked at everyone and found that everyone had the same expression. At this moment, White Lion's voice suddenly rang out. Master, the light screen is moving. Chapter 24-23. Looking at the movement on the light screen, everyone understood what was going on. It turned out that Bailey Hongzhuang was the last cultivator to come out. As for the other two who didn't come out, they probably wouldn't have the chance to come out again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other. This situation was undoubtedly something none of them wanted to see. Yin Aoshuang sighed. Participating in this competition is inherently dangerous. It's already good that so many of us can come out safely. They had already understood the risks of participating in the Battle of Zhuolulong before they came. Overall, their team's current situation was already much better than expected. Master, isn't it forbidden to take people's lives in this competition? Why would something like this happen? After seeing this scene, Xiao Hei couldn't help but lower her voice and whisper into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. Previously, when Master was fighting, her opponent had also fallen into danger. However, there was a wave of energy that protected them and brought them away. I'm afraid the rules are different. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice could only be heard by the three beasts. She didn't want the other cultivators to know about this, as it would undoubtedly make them unhappy. To the various major powers, the loss that they couldn't bear was the death of their successor. As for the other cultivators, as long as the number didn't reach a certain level, it would be within the range that the major powers could bear. Therefore, if it didn't take lives, it should only be targeted at the successor. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts couldn't help but be stunned. However, they quickly understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Speaking of which, this world was originally unfair. Most of the time, such rules were tacitly agreed. The cultivators of Limitless Palace all sighed. Their expressions revealed a hint of helplessness. A faint feeling of sadness lingered in their hearts. No matter what, they had been teammates for such a long time. They didn't expect that the previous separation would really be the last time they would see each other. It was inevitable that they would feel a little sad. Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a little sad in her heart. However, the previous situation had separated all of them. The rest of them were also helpless. As cultivators, they should be used to this kind of situation. Let's go out first, Bailey Hongzhuang suggested. Everyone was in good condition now, and their injuries were almost healed. She and Deep Beichan didn't fight at all, so naturally, they weren't injured. Since the door to the light screen had been opened, they decided to go out and take a look. Everyone quickly collected their emotions. None of them knew what kind of danger they would encounter next, so they had to brace themselves to face everything that was about to come. Then, everyone walked out the light screen door. When everyone walked out, they felt a burst of clamor that spread to their ears from all directions. Another team came out. Could it be Limitless Palace's team? Yo, this Limitless Palace's leading disciple is very beautiful. 8 left. That's not bad. Before Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could clearly see the situation in front of them, they heard many people talking about them. After taking a closer look, they realized that in front of them was an extremely large and bright hall. There were many teams of cultivators gathered in the hall. Chapter 24-24. This situation had obviously exceeded the expectations of all the cultivators in Limitless Palace. They originally thought that they would appear on land after exiting the light screen door. They did not expect that they would suddenly appear in a large hall. Moreover, there were more than 10 teams in front of them. This number was somewhat frightening. Bailey Hongzhuang swept her gaze around. Among these teams, there were quite a number of people who had been defeated by her. It seemed that these people had gathered together after their defeat and came to this large hall together. In that case, wouldn't it mean that all the teams would appear in this large hall in the end? In a short moment, countless thoughts ran through Bailey Hongzhuang's mind as she pondered over the current situation. However, in the face of everyone's scrutiny and discussion, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest maintained their silence. They directly chose an empty space in the large hall and sat down. This large hall was extremely large, and the number of cultivators it could accommodate was also extremely shocking. Therefore, even though there were so many teams gathered in the large hall, it still appeared to be somewhat spacious. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not have the slightest bit of weakness. From the current situation, the teams that came out later were usually the strongest. At least, among the teams in front of them, they had enough to be proud. From the moment they appeared in this large hall to the moment they sat down, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a venomous gaze following her closely. Almost without looking, Bailey Hongzhuang knew who the owner of this gaze was. Thinking about it, among the teams in this battle for deer, only Lan Xingyan would be able to hate her so bitterly. Her line of sight turned. As expected, Lan Xingyan was fiercely glaring at Bailey Hongzhuang. As Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head, their gazes immediately collided. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly looking at her, Lan Xingyan was stunned at first. Then, she fiercely glared back. Originally, she did not know what had happened. She thought that her own team being the first to arrive in this large hall was something to be happy about. However, when the other teams appeared one after another, she then understood the reason behind this. As it turned out, she did not even have the qualifications to participate in this competition. When had their Lan Clan's team not achieved excellent results in the battle for deer vying? This time, it was actually the last place. Moreover, with so many people gathered here, she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. It was simply too embarrassing. She still remembered that when everyone first saw her, they were all surprised that she had lost an arm. They even had some doubts about her identity. This was simply infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang was the mastermind behind all of this. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. She naturally knew about the situation that Lan Xingyan had encountered previously. It was truly wonderful. No wonder Lan Xingyan looked at him as if she couldn't wait to eat him up. To make such a high and mighty Lan Xingyan suddenly fall from her pedestal, this kind of feeling would indeed drive people crazy. However, she still hoped that Lan Xingyan's psychological quality would be better. Otherwise, there were many things that he hadn't done yet, and Lan Xingyan already couldn't take it and went crazy. Then, there wouldn't be anything fun left. When Lan Xingyan noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's contemptuous gaze, she was about to explode in anger. This woman actually dared to mock her. She really wanted to tear this woman apart. Chapter 24-25. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally noticed that Ouyang Etien's figure was not here. It seemed that Ouyang Etien's strength was not bad. He had persisted until now and had not failed. Without Ouyang Etien, with Lan Xingyan's current state, she was undoubtedly a soft persimmon. She did not need to care at all. Young palace master, is this the end of the battle of Zhuolu? Yan Aoshuang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. This situation was somewhat different from what she had imagined. She had thought that this battle of Zhuolu would be abnormally dangerous. Although the things they had experienced before entering the underground passageway were indeed very dangerous. However, in the underground passageway, it was completely a fair competition. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a light of contemplation. Then, she shook her head and said, "It shouldn't be. Right now, only half of the Battle of Zhuolu has passed. The other teams that are still fighting will appear one by one. It definitely won't take half a month. I'm afraid that there will be other tests later. It's just that we don't know about them for now." Although she was not the founder of this Battle of Zhuolu, Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to confirm this point based on her previous life's experience. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the Limitless Palace disciples, who were originally rather doubtful, nodded their heads. If this was really the case, then they would have to be ready for the next test at any time. Right now, there are so many teams gathered here. Pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. No one will be the first to start a conflict. Everyone, rest assured and cultivate here for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. If there were only a few teams here, then the possibility of a big fight was not small. But now that so many teams were gathered together, it was actually a lot safer. Not only that, from the moment Bailey Hongzhuang came to this hall, she felt that the elemental energy in this hall was very rich. It was the same as when they were cultivating in the passageway. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity to cultivate. As far as the eye could see, there were many groups of cultivators meditating and cultivating to pass this period of waiting. Pei Yifan and the others nodded. They were originally a little uncertain in their hearts, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they seemed to have found their backbone and no longer had to worry. As everyone began to cultivate, Bailey Hongzhuang also closed her eyes. Now that there were so many people here, he might as well cultivate properly and save himself some trouble. Hey, do you know the name of the female disciple leading the Limitless Palace this time? Her looks and temperament are heaven-defying. The gazes of many male cultivators landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, before Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, they had already sized up all the girls present. In the end, they were still certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most beautiful. In fact, Lan Qingyin's outstanding appearance was also well known. Although Lan Qingyin's broken arm had affected her beauty, her outstanding appearance still couldn't be ignored. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, everyone's gazes were immediately attracted to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was even better than Lan Qingyin. Everyone's eyes lit up. Most importantly, Lan Qingyin was the young mistress of the Lan family. They couldn't have any thoughts at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was only a disciple of Limitless Palace. They had hope. Chapter 24-26. When Wang Yujing heard some people's discussion about Bailey Hongzhuang, he immediately revealed Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. Although he lost to Bailey Hongzhuang, he only admired Bailey Hongzhuang and did not resent her. With Wang Yujing's words, all the cultivators who had been discussing stopped. Their gazes all landed on Wang Yujing, and their eyes were filled with surprise. Since when did Limitless Palace have a young palace master? Is what you said true? Wang Yujing nodded. I was defeated by her. What do you think? Once these words came out, the crowd no longer doubted him. As the young master of the Wang clan, Wang Yujing naturally would not joke about such matters. What's more, he was defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang was not the young palace master of Limitless Palace, Wang Yujing would not have been defeated by her. I didn't expect Limitless Palace to have a young palace master. Young Master Wang, if you didn't tell us, I'm afraid something bad would have happened. Hearing this, the crowd's expression changed slightly. Although these words were unpleasant to hear, it was undeniable that it was the truth. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally heard the crowd's discussion. Originally, she planned to reveal her identity directly to avoid trouble. She did not expect Wang Yujing to help her solve this problem. It seemed that although Wang Yujing's strength was not strong enough, his character was still quite good. In the past, she had experienced this kind of trouble. However, when her appearance and identity matched, there were fewer people who dared to continue provoking her. Lan Qingyin's appearance had also inherited the Lan clan's excellent genes. However, Bailey Hongzhuang could guarantee that Lan Qingyin had never been harassed like this before. This was the influence brought about by status and power. Lan Qingyin, who was already extremely unhappy, became even more unhappy after hearing the crowd's discussion. This Bailey Hongzhuang actually stole all the limelight. She originally planned to perform well in this battle of vying for the throne. However, she did not expect to get off on the wrong foot and let Bailey Hongzhuang gain the upper hand. After this battle of vying for the throne was over, Bailey Hongzhuang's name would probably become famous. When that time came, it would be even more difficult for her to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyin's gaze could not help but fall on Baishir, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not enough to injure Lan Qingyin. If not for this damn contract, Bailey Hongzhuang would have died by now, would have died by her hands, by Lan Qingyin. Baishir glanced at Lan Qingyin lazily. There was only one thought in its mind, and that was to bite Lan Qingyin's head off the next time. Then, this fellow would not be so annoying. Calms. Usually, everyone would be cultivating in silence. Only when a new team appeared would everyone pay more attention. Now that more than half of the teams had come out, the remaining teams would come out one after another in the next few days. The next day, when Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating, the quiet main hall suddenly erupted with a burst of discussion. Look, isn't that Ouyang Yiqian? The Ouyang clan's cultivators have also come out. I heard that Ouyang Yiqian's cultivation has reached level 7 of the Blue Realm. Since he has come out, I'm afraid it will be over soon. Chapter 24-27. Lan Qingyin, who had been in a bad mood for a long time, felt a lot better after seeing Ouyang Etienne. Over the past few days, although there were a few cultivators she had interacted with on a daily basis, she could always feel their curiosity and schadenfreude when they saw how serious her injuries were. She had always been a proud peacock. How could she endure other people's schadenfreude? Even if they didn't show it directly, it was still something she couldn't bear. On the contrary, Ouyang Etienne was different. Ouyang Etienne understood the whole story, so she didn't have to worry about Ouyang Etienne having such emotions. Qingyan. Ouyang Etienne smiled after seeing Lan Qingyan. He was really worried about Lan Qingyan before, but now that he saw that Lan Qingyan was safe and sound, he was relieved. Although Lan Qingyan's right hand couldn't grow out now, it could still recover after returning to the Lan family. Etienne. At this moment, Lan Qingyan saw Ouyang Etienne as if she had seen a relative, so even this form of address became a bit intimate. Feeling the change in Lan Qingyan, Ouyang Etienne was surprised and happy at the same time. It seemed that the best effect could only be achieved when a woman needed comfort. In the past, he had never enjoyed such treatment from Lan Qingyan. The other cultivators also changed their expressions after seeing the intimacy between Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne. The strength of the Lan family and the Ouyang family was not weak. If these two families were united by marriage, their strength would increase again. For the major forces, the alliance between two forces could cause some subtle changes, so they had to pay more attention to it. Judging from the expressions of the two, this marriage was most likely inevitable. Qingyan, how had you been these days? Ouyang Etienne asked Lan Qingyan's situation with concern. Young palace master, Ouyang Etienne has appeared. Lan Qingyan's arrogance has risen again. I'm afraid they will come looking for trouble. After seeing this scene not far away, Yan Aoshuang couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, inexplicably making people believe in her. Don't worry, there are so many people here. Even if they want to make a move, they have to think twice. What's more, I have something on Lan Qingyan. The disciples of Limitless Palace were a little worried, but after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent appearance, they were relieved. Previously, they also saw the young palace master force a medicinal pill into Lan Qingyan's mouth. It couldn't be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang then closed her eyes to cultivate. The current situation was different from when she was on the ground, so she didn't have to be too worried. Hey, look, that Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne are walking towards the direction of the Limitless Palace cultivators. After seeing Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne's actions, a cultivator's voice. Oh, isn't the relationship between Lan family and Limitless? Is Lan Qingyan going to look for trouble? There's a good show. Everyone looked at the aggressive Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne with interest. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to cultivate as if she didn't notice anything. Bailey Hongzhuang, stop pretending. Get up. Chapter 24-28. The disciples of Limitless Palace withdrew from their cultivation state and glared at Lan Qingyan in front of them. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the aggressive Lan Qingyan in front of her, but she still had the appearance of a calm cloud. Lan Qingyan, now that your helper is here, are you looking for trouble again? As soon as she opened her mouth, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hold back and directly gave her a resounding slap. Yesterday, Lan Qingyan didn't dare to look for trouble. Today, she relied on Ouyang Etienne's appearance and dared to look for her. Wasn't this because she didn't have the confidence? When the surrounding cultivators saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan were so angry when they met, they were all stunned. It seemed that this conflict was bigger than they thought. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's sarcasm, Lan Qingyan's face turned green and white. Unfortunately, she was powerless to refute. It was really infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang, stop talking nonsense. What did you feed me just now? Quickly hand over the antidote. Otherwise, I'll let your entire team die here. Currently, there were only 8 disciples of Limitless Palace left. The Lan clan's cultivators were all here because they didn't have the qualifications to participate in the competition. In addition to the Ouyang clan's cultivators, This number was really not small. However, in the face of Lan Xinyan's threat, Bailey Hongzhuang only sneered. Your threat is useless against me. Previously, you also said that you would kill me. Wasn't the one who ended it decisively with your own hand? Looking at the furious face in front of her, the sarcasm in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the crowd couldn't help but gasp. Almost everyone was secretly guessing who broke Lan Xinyan's hand. However, no one thought that it was related to Limitless Palace's young palace master. Before this battle of Zhuolu, they didn't even know that Limitless Palace had a young palace master. Even though they had seen Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday, everyone still had doubts about her strength. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's age was really young and her qualifications were shallow. So many people did not take her seriously. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang had broken Lan Xinyan's hand, the situation had changed. They weren't clear about Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, but they were very clear about Lan Xinyan's strength. The fact that Lan Xinyan could suffer such a huge loss in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang was enough to prove how strong Bailey Hongzhuang was. What's more, after Bailey Hongzhuang appeared yesterday, Lan Xinyan didn't dare to make any moves. It was only until Ouyang Yiqian appeared that Lan Xinyan dared to find trouble. Who was strong and who was weak could be seen at a glance. Suddenly, no one dared to underestimate Bailey Hongzhuang. It seemed that Limitless Palace's young palace master had the same temperament as Limitless Palace's palace master. Thinking back, Yulin Feng was also an unknown person. However, no one expected that once he appeared, he could no longer be ignored. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang was also such a person. After Lan Xinyan and Ouyang Yiqian felt the change in the attitude of the other cultivators, their faces turned ugly. Almost at the first moment when everyone exclaimed, they already understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was using them as stepping stones. She wanted to use their reputation to make her name known. Chapter 24-29. The cultivators of Limitless Palace instantly felt the change in the other people's view of them. They couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang in their hearts. Young palace master's methods were really amazing. In this short period of time, everyone knew that Lan Xinyan was defeated by young palace master. Moreover, she lost miserably, truly mighty and domineering. After Ouyang Yiqian saw that Lan Xinyan was so weak in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but say, Bailey Hongzhuang, quickly hand over the antidote. He didn't want to let others see him as a joke for no reason. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, but the curve of her lips revealed a bit of coldness. You want me to hand it over, and I'll hand it over? If I want you to die, you'll die. Even if they really fought, she wouldn't shrink back. What's more, the other party was just clamoring. It would be strange if she paid attention to it. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ouyang Yiqian was also angry. These words jumped out of his mouth one after another. Less nonsense. If you dare to make a move on me here, I don't mind fighting to the death with you. Unless Lan Xinyan doesn't want to live anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slightly raised, revealing a bright and charming smile. The reason why she could be fearless was naturally because she had enough confidence. Lan Xinyan's heart was also depressed. She didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang gave her to eat. From the moment she ate it until now, there was no reaction. Sometimes she even suspected that what Bailey Hongzhuang gave her to eat was a useless elixir. She just wanted to use this method to make her afraid. However, she was really worried. If it was really poison, then wouldn't she be in trouble? She, Lan Xinyan, still had a great future. She absolutely couldn't lose her life like this. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's fearless and unyielding attitude, Lan Xinyan and Ouyang Yiqian glanced at each other with a gloomy face. Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction was not beyond their expectations. However, they had also thought of a way to deal with it. The next moment, Ouyang Yiqian's voice resounded throughout the hall. Heroes, this is a private matter between us and Limitless Palace. I hope that no matter what happens next, everyone will not interfere. My Ouyang clan and Lan clan will definitely remember everyone's help at this moment. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the cultivators present changed a little, but no one said anything. Although Limitless Palace's strength wasn't weak, it had only been established for a short period of time. Regardless of background or influence, it couldn't be compared to the Lan family and Ouyang family. Offending these two great clans for the sake of Limitless Palace was undoubtedly not a good deal. Everyone present was smart. As long as they didn't have a strong relationship with Limitless Palace, they wouldn't stand out at this moment. It seems like the Ouyang family and Lan family are preparing to join forces to deal with Limitless Palace. I'm afraid Limitless Palace's team is in trouble. Everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongshuang's body. 2 against 1. The result could be determined without even looking. The cultivators of Limitless Palace were also nervous. If they were to fight here and the other forces didn't care, they would be in trouble. Chapter 2430. Lan Xingyin looked at Bailey Hongshuang proudly. She wanted to see who else could help Bailey Hongshuang. She didn't believe that Mo Yunjue would appear so coincidentally this time. Bailey Hongshuang, if you don't hand over the antidote now, I will make your entire team disappear. Lan Xingyin's eyes were malicious and resentful. She had already thought it through. As long as Bailey Hongshuang handed over the antidote, she would take Bailey Hongshuang's life at the first opportunity. She would never allow Bailey Hongshuang to continue living in this world. Ouyang Etian also looked at Bailey Hongshuang coldly. At this point, Bailey Hongshuang had no other choice. However, from the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongshuang only looked at Lan Xingyin indifferently and turned a deaf ear to her threats. She was very clear that as long as she didn't hand over the antidote, both sides would be tied. The advantage on the surface was not much of an advantage. Even if the other teams didn't make a move, what could they do? Could they torture her in front of everyone here? They couldn't do it, so they couldn't win. Moreover, this poison was originally specially prepared for Lan Xingyin. It was to let Lan Xingyin have a taste of pain. How could she make an antidote? That was something she didn't need, okay? However, her poison had an incubation period. It would only explode after the Battle of Zhuolu ended. At this moment, a voice that surprised everyone suddenly rang out. Young Lord Lan has such a big temper, making the entire team disappear at the slightest provocation. But I'm afraid it's not as simple as you said, right? Shangguan Yingying saw Lan Xingyin's hooting as soon as she came out, and her heart was already filled with dissatisfaction. As a woman, Shangguan Yingying understood Lan Xingyin very well. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, she couldn't stand Lan Xingyin's behavior. In this Shangxian continent, there were many capable cultivators, but Lan Xingyin was so arrogant. She felt unhappy just looking at her. Most importantly, when she saw that the person Lan Xingyin was threatening was Bailey Hongshuang, she couldn't stand it anymore. What a joke. Di Baichen wasn't here, so it wasn't Lan Xingyin's turn to bully Hongshuang. When Xiren was helpless when he saw his wife's temper rise again. But after seeing that the person Lan Xingyin was threatening was Bailey Hongshuang, his temper also rose. Hongshuang was his good brother's wife. How could he let her be bullied by others? Lan Xingyin turned around and saw the aggressive Shangguan Yingying. Her expression changed. She also didn't have a good impression of Shangguan Yingying. Usually, they just didn't like each other. She didn't expect Shangguan Yingying to take the initiative to mess things up. Shangguan Yingying, this is our business. We don't need you to interfere, Lan Xingyin said coldly. She was already confident of victory, but now another person appeared to disrupt the situation. She didn't want any more changes. The other forces' expressions became more interesting when they saw Cloud Sword Sect, who had just appeared from the light screen, start to disrupt the situation. Is there any conflict between Cloud Sword Sect and Lan family? There doesn't seem to be any conflict. It's just that Lan Xingyin and Shangguan Yingying don't see eye to eye. But they haven't had any conflicts before. What's going on today? Chapter 2431. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Shangguan Ying and when Xiren suddenly appear, she was also a little surprised, but then a smile appeared on her face. When Xiren and Shangguan Ying were good friends of Di Beichun who grew up together. She also regarded these two as good friends. Although everyone was too busy a few days ago and didn't have much time to get together, this friendship existed. Shangguan Ying winked at Bailey Hongzhuang mischievously. Her impression of Bailey Hongzhuang had always been good, but previously everyone was preparing for the Battle of Zhuolu, so she didn't have time to go to Tiangang's sect. What do you mean, this is your business? Shangguan Ying looked at Lan Qingyan with dissatisfaction. Hongzhuang is my good friend. Her business is my business. As soon as Shangguan Ying finished speaking, the surrounding cultivators finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Shangguan Ying didn't specifically look for trouble with Lan Qingyan, but because Lan Qingyan was looking for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, so she came forward. No wonder Shangguan Ying was so angry. It turned out that she saw her good friend being bullied. Cloud Sword Sect was quite an extraordinary existence among many forces. They didn't expect that the young palace master of Limitless Palace who suddenly appeared was actually a good friend of Cloud Sword Sect's young palace master's wife. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang had existed for a long time, but they had never understood her. Once again, he said, "Her business is my business." Hearing this, Lan Qingyan's temples throbbed. Why was it that every time she looked for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, there was always someone who came to disturb the situation? How come she didn't know that people in the cultivation world were so loyal? Or was it that Bailey Hongzhuang's popularity was unexpectedly good? No matter which one it was, she couldn't believe it. No matter how loyal cultivators were, when these two forces collided, if it wasn't a life and death friendship, then it was impossible to stand out. First, there was Shitian Tower. Now there was Cloud Sword Sect. Didn't Bailey Hongzhuang just become the young palace master of Limitless Palace? When did she make these friendships? Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian had 10,000 questions in their hearts, but they simply couldn't think of an answer. When the disciples of Limitless Palace saw that the people of Cloud Sword Sect suddenly came to help, they were also stunned for a moment. The popularity of the young palace master was unexpectedly good. Although Limitless Palace had some dealings with Cloud Sword Sect, they were completely unaware that the relationship between Shangguan Ying and Bailey Hongzhuang was already good to such an extent. Originally, they had thought that they were going to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu because they were isolated and without help. Who would have thought that they would have quite a few helpers? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded at Shangguan Ying and Xiren. She was very grateful for their help. Shangguan Ying, this is a personal grudge between me and Bailey Hongzhuang. She broke my arm and poisoned me. Are you sure you won't be our public enemy because of her? Lan Qingyan's voice was cold and hard. At this point, she absolutely couldn't continue to give in. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to make Bailey Hongzhuang hand over the antidote. After Shangguan Ying knew what Bailey Hongzhuang had done, she couldn't help but be stunned. She really couldn't see that Bailey Hongzhuang could do such a thing. She had known Lan Qingyan for so long, but she had never seen Lan Qingyan so unlucky. However, it felt good. Chapter 2432. So what? Shangguan Ying raised her eyebrows. Since when did the grudges between cultivators only depend on one person? I don't believe that you didn't make a move against Hongzhuang. It's just that you're not capable enough. Once these words came out, Lan Qingyan's face suddenly darkened by another layer. She only felt that everyone's gaze towards her had turned into ridicule. After when Xiren saw that Shangguan Ying's words were so sharp, he secretly gave her a thumbs up in his heart. His wife really hit the nail on the head. No matter when she spoke, she was always so mighty and domineering. This was the first time he saw Lan Qingyan's face so ugly. But after seeing that Lan Qingyan's other arm had disappeared, he could only sigh. The might of Di Beichun's wife was really not one bit inferior to his own wife. Shangguan Ying, don't go too far. Lan Qingyan's face was ashen. So what if you all join? Be careful not to suffer a great loss. Lan Qingyan was simply about to explode. In the past, Shangguan Ying didn't have the chance to be so arrogant in front of her. She didn't expect that now she actually joined forces with Bailey Hongzhuang to ridicule her. It was really abominable to the extreme. Hearing Lan Qingyin's reason, Shangguan Ying sneered. "Let's fight then. Who's afraid of who?" When she said this, Shangguan Ying secretly glanced at Wen Xiren. In fact, she had her own selfish motives. Cloudsword sect and Lan family didn't have any dealings with each other. Although she didn't like Lan Qingyin for a long time, both sides had never fallen out with each other. After all, the major forces absolutely wouldn't fall out with each other because of the personal grudges between the two. Now it just so happened that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyin were direct enemies. No matter how one looked at it, their Cloudsword sect had to stand on Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she would completely fall out with Lan Qingyin. How could Xiren not know his wife's little scheme? However, although he often argued with Shangguan Ying, in his heart, he still doted on Shangguan Ying. Now that the conflict between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyin had reached such a stage, it was obvious that there was no room for negotiation. With his iron friendship with Di Beichun, there was no doubt about it. Moreover, the Tiangang sect had already become enemies with the Lan clan. Could it be that his Cloudword sect would still be afraid? Seeing Shangguan Ying's resolute attitude, Lan Qingyin was completely speechless. She didn't know what kind of charm Bailey Hongzhuang had to make others do this for her. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. Lan Qingyin and Ouyang Etian looked at each other. Both of them were calculating in their hearts what their chances of winning were if they were to really fight. If Lan Qingyin's right hand was fine, then even if they were to really fight, victory would still be within their grasp. However, her battle prowess had been affected, so the odds of her winning were now 50-50. Among the spectating teams, there was clearly no team that was willing to help them. This was a little awkward. At this moment, another voice suddenly rang out, breaking the original deadlock. However, this situation made Lan Qingyin and Ouyang Etian's faces turn black again. "Young Palace Master Bailey." A joyful voice suddenly rang out, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 2433. Isn't this the Sun Moon Palace's team? The Sun Moon Palace has been very low-key in recent years. They didn't even participate in the last battle of vying for supremacy. I thought they wouldn't participate this time either. How did the Sun Moon Palace's people know Bailey Hongzhuang? It seems that Bailey Hongzhuang isn't a simple person. When did our information become so limited? The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Their hearts were filled with disbelief. They had always thought that they were well informed. No matter what happened, they would always try their best to grasp the news firsthand. However, the young palace master of Limitless Palace had actually befriended so many forces without them knowing. This made them speechless. They had always thought that Limitless Palace only developed on its own and didn't have much contact with the other forces. But now, it seemed that they had been doing everything in secret. The disciples of Limitless Palace stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of them. At this moment, they were completely convinced by their young palace master. They completely didn't know that their young palace master's network was so wide. Moreover, from this situation, it seemed that every force's relationship with their young palace master wasn't just ordinary. Lan Qingyin had quite a number of acquaintances here, but at this moment, no one stood up to fight alongside Lan Qingyin. Just from this point, they could see their young palace master's ability. Originally, they felt that they were isolated and helpless in this battle of vying for supremacy. But now, their morale seemed to have risen in an instant. Their worries and lack of confidence completely dissipated in a short period of time. Lan Qingyin and Ouyang Etian were also in disbelief. Bailey Hongzhuang's network was a little too shocking. Wasn't the Sun Moon Palace always hidden from the world? Among all the forces here, there weren't many forces that were familiar with the Sun Moon Palace. How did Bailey Hongzhuang even know people from the hidden Sun Moon Palace? What on earth did you do when you were a nobody? Lan Qingyin didn't like the Sun Moon Palace. Because she knew that Mu Lingbing was an outstanding disciple of the Sun Moon Palace, who later married Lan Yanxiao. Ever since Mu Ling Bing's disappearance, Sun Moon Palace had made trouble for the Lan family. But in the end, nothing had been done. As a result, the Lan clan and the Sun Moon Palace had changed from a marriage alliance to a completely different relationship. Because the Sun Moon Palace had been hidden from the world all these years, she didn't feel much about it. She didn't expect that the Sun Moon Palace's team would also participate in the battle for Deer Pursuit this time. She felt a little strange as she watched. Miss Gu. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded at Sun Moon Palace's Gu Jiqin. Gu Jiqin was the niece of the Sun Moon Hall's great elder, Gu Jinghe. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had met her in the Sun Moon Palace. However, at that time, she had focused all of her experience on her grandmother's illness, so they hadn't interacted much. This time, the Sun Moon Palace's participation in the battle for the throne of martial arts must have been specially arranged by her grandmother to lend her a helping hand. Gu Jiqin's face rippled with a happy smile. Before she participated in the battle for the throne of martial arts, she had received an order to spare no effort to help Bailey Hongzhuang. When she found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually become the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she was extremely shocked. The palace master's granddaughter was truly amazing. Not only was her medical skills strong, her strength was astonishing, and her fortune was also extraordinary. Chapter 2434. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to the Sun Moon Palace, Gu Jiqin had learned from Gu Jinghe about what the palace master and the others had gone through. She also hated the Yu clan and the Lan clan's actions to the extreme. She knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted revenge, and she also hoped that she could help Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, she was able to achieve what she had today without the help of the Sun Moon Palace. Returning the favor was what she should do. Young Palace Master Bailey, it seems that you have encountered some trouble. If you need our Sun Moon Palace's help, just say the word. We will definitely not refuse. Gu Jiqin didn't show too much intimacy with Bailey Hongzhuang because she didn't want the Lan clan to discover their relationship. Therefore, Gu Jiqin's words only made everyone think that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have helped the Sun Moon Palace before, so the Sun Moon Palace came to repay this favor. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren looked at each other. They didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang had so many helpers. Ouyang Etian and Lan Xinyan's faces were gloomy. The change in the situation was completely beyond their expectations. Originally, they had a 50-50 chance of winning in a 2-on-2 situation. Now, the Sun Moon Palace had joined in. From Gu Jiqin's words, they knew that the Sun Moon Palace would definitely not just stand by and watch once they started fighting. In this way, it would be 3 against 1. They would lose without a doubt. The originally sure-win situation had unknowingly turned into a sure-lose situation. The two of them couldn't figure it out. Most importantly, compared to the previous situation, the current situation was a little awkward. Not to mention that there was no point in continuing to persist. If they wanted to give up, it would be too shameful. If Bailey Hongzhuang refused, they would lose even more face. Haha, Lan Xinyan and Ouyang Etian are dumbfounded. Xiaohe laughed proudly. She didn't deliberately lower her voice. It wasn't like only Lan Xinyan was allowed to find helpers. Their master didn't find helpers, but if they did find helpers, Lan Xinyan, this hateful person, couldn't be compared to them. Lan Xinyan, this person, other than relying on numbers, has no ability at all. If Ouyang Etian wasn't here, I'm afraid she wouldn't even have the guts to talk to Master. Xiaobai didn't mind stabbing another knife. There was no need to show mercy to a person like Lan Xinyan. Not only did Xiaohe Hongzhuang, but almost everyone present looked at her with pity. What goes around comes around. Who would have thought that Lan Xinyan would also fall into such a situation? Lan Xinyan, if you want to fight, start now. I don't have time to waste it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked condescendingly at Lan Xinyan. The contempt in her words was obvious. Limitless Palace's cultivators also puffed out their chests and looked at Lan Xinyan proudly. Their imposing manner wasn't any weaker than Lan Xinyan's aggressive manner. Seeing this, Lan Qingyin couldn't help but look at Ouyang Etian beside her. She really didn't know what to do in this situation. Ouyang Etian also felt very awkward. Usually, it was more common to see two teams working together at this time. However, it was a little strange for three teams to work together. Chapter 24:35. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would not give them a way out. This kind of embarrassing situation was also unfamiliar to Ouyang Etian. Lan Qingyin, weren't you clamoring to make us disappear? Why are you mute now? Yin Aoshuang looked at Lan Qingyin provocatively. From the beginning to the end, it was Lan Qingyin who had been finding trouble with them. Moreover, every time, she would clamor to annihilate all of them. It really made people unhappy. That's right. Every time she comes, her arrogance scares people to death. It's as if everyone is afraid of her. Hit her. If you have the ability, then do it now. Pei Yifan and the rest were not polite at all. They just wanted to slap Lan Qingyin's face. Previously, she relied on her own strength to snatch their things. Now that it was their turn to be powerful, they naturally would not let Lan Qingyin be happy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Lan Qingyin. She noticed Lan Qingyin's expression that looked as if she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She also felt a kind of happiness spreading in her heart, but more of it was hatred. Her parents had survived under the ridicule and sarcasm of Lan Qingyin's family all these years. The kind of humiliation was enough to make them commit suicide. However, in order to be able to see her again, her parents had been struggling at death's door until now. Thinking of how Lan Qingyin had looked at her father and mother with contempt, Bailey Hongzhuang felt her chest burn with anger. She hated that she couldn't tear Lan Qingyin's body into 10,000 pieces. However, before she took Lan Qingyin's life, she wanted Lan Qingyin to suffer the same kind of humiliation. Lan Qingyin, you wanted to snatch my things first. It's normal for me to break one of your arms. Originally, I wanted to mind my own business, but you kept finding trouble with me. You even made up this groundless lie, saying that I fed you poison. If I really fed you poison, do you think you would still be alive now? Even if you're the young master of the Lan family, it's too much to bully others like this. Do you really think that I, Bailey Hongzhuang, am a vegetarian? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lan Qingyin with burning eyes. The flickering anger in her eyes could not wait to devour Lan Qingyin. His words left Lan Qingyin in a daze. That astonishing aura left her in a daze. The previous Bailey Hongzhuang had never revealed such an attitude. It really scared her. Everyone only knew that Bailey Hongzhuang broke one of Lan Qingyin's arms, but they did not know what happened. Now, after listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, they finally understood. So, Lan Qingyin was the first one who took the initiative to find fault with Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they did not expect Lan Qingyin to accuse Bailey Hongzhuang of poisoning her. This was a little sinister. Lan Qingyin was dumbfounded when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang pouring all the dirty water on her. Bailey Hongzhuang was the one who fed her poison. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang pretending to be innocent? The disciples of Limitless Palace were also stunned. However, after thinking about it carefully, they realized that only the two of them knew about the incident. No one from the other forces saw it. Therefore, no matter what, there was no evidence. They could just let them talk nonsense. At this time, the disciples of Limitless Palace naturally stood on Bailey Hongzhuang's side without hesitation. They immediately started to support her. They wanted to anger Lan Qingyin to death. Chapter 24:36. Ouyang Etian obviously didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a false accusation. But from the looks of others, he knew that almost everyone believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, even he and Lan Qingyin didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang fed her. At least, until now, Lan Qingyin didn't show any signs of discomfort. Could it be Bailey Hongzhuang really just fed Lan Qingyin a pill that had no effect at all and only wanted to use it as an opportunity to make Lan Qingyin feel fear? After knowing all this, Shangwan Yingying looked at Lan Qingyin with disdain. She didn't like Lan Qingyin for a day or two, but she didn't expect Lan Qingyan to become even worse. Bailey Hongzhuang, if it wasn't for your contract beast, would you cripple my hand? Stop dreaming. Lan Qingyan was unconvinced. In terms of strength, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't her opponent. This was something she was absolutely unwilling to admit. Ouyang Etian saw that Lan Qingyan completely missed the point, and his face became ugly. At this moment, Lan Qingyan said such words. Wasn't this the same as tacitly agreeing to Bailey Hongzhuang's previous accusation? This wasn't a good thing. Sure enough, at this moment, everyone already understood everything. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Lan Qingyan. Don't talk nonsense. Since there is already a grudge between us, why don't we have a good contest and see if you disappear or I disappear? Taking advantage of the situation, this was something Bailey Hongzhuang was very good at. Now that she had the upper hand, there was no reason for her to let Lan Qingyan leave so easily. When these words came out, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but panic. From a situation when Bailey Hongzhuang fought with her earlier, she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have any scruples about her. If Ouyang Yiqian didn't appear, then she would have already become a ghost under Bailey Hongzhuang's sword. Now that the three parties were fighting, she and Ouyang Yiqian would be in danger. Shangguan Yingying and Gu Zhiqin stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang without saying a word. Their attitude couldn't be more obvious. As long as they took action, they would not hesitate to form an alliance with Limitless Palace. When the other teams saw that the show was getting more and more exciting, the interest in their eyes also became more and more intense. To them, no matter which team fell, it was a good thing. Young Palace Master Bailey, if this matter gets out of hand, it won't benefit either of us. Why don't we each take a step back? Ouyang Etian sized up the situation for a moment and decided to lower his attitude. Where there is life, there's hope. If you were to die here, that would be the most unwise move. Listening to Ouyang Etian's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Young Master Ouyang's words are really interesting. I remember that not long ago, you were still threatening my life. Why didn't you say that we should both take a step back? Don't you think it's funny that you're saying such things now? Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone couldn't help but laugh. Previously, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian's attitude was completely planning to take Bailey Hongzhuang's life. Now it became friendship first. It was a bit ridiculous. Chapter 2437. No matter how unwilling Lan Qingyan was, she knew that she could not anger Bailey Hongzhuang at this time. Otherwise, she would be the unlucky one. Fortunately, she had Ouyang Etian to help her. If she was alone, she really wouldn't know what to do. Although she felt very embarrassed, Lan Qingyan was still very grateful to Ouyang Etian. After all, she wasn't the only one who was embarrassed. She felt better in her heart. Young Palace Master Bailey, since things have developed to this point, it will be difficult for us to explain when we go back. Why don't you give us a condition, and we'll let this matter go? Ouyang Etian's expression was calm. There were no eternal enemies, only eternal benefits. He believed that between the two, Bailey Hongzhuang would agree as long as she was smart enough. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren looked at each other. This Ouyang Etian was really a character. Once the Ouyang clan and Lan clan were connected by marriage, it would be even more difficult to deal with in the future. Lan Qingyan's strength was very strong, but her personality was more arrogant and didn't think deeply. However, with Ouyang Etian by her side, it was completely different. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Ouyang Etian. It seemed that Ouyang Etian really knew how to deal with this kind of matter. A condition? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "That's fine too." Ouyang Etian couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to relent, even if they had to pay a price, it was nothing. After all, they would have a chance to settle accounts in the future. As long as it's something that my Ouyang clan and Lan clan have, young Palace Master Bailey can just say it. After the Battle of Zhuolu is over, we will definitely give it to you immediately. Lan Qingyan's eyes regained some spirit. This stalling tactic was really wonderful. As long as the Battle of Zhuolu was over, she would definitely let Bailey Hongzhuang know the price of offending her. If she didn't personally torture Bailey Hongzhuang to death, she wouldn't be called Lan Qingyan. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes and looked at the spirit in Lan Qingyan's eyes. She didn't need to think to know what Lan Qingyan was thinking. Unfortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang, wouldn't let Lan Qingyan have a good time. There's no need to be so troublesome. You can give me what I want. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into an enchanting and charming smile. Only, it depends on whether Lan Qingyan is willing or not. Young Palace Master Bailey, please say it. For a time, everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang wanted. Although Shangguan Yingying was somewhat unwilling to let go of Lan Qingyan and the others, this was still Bailey Hongzhuang's matter. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang was willing, she naturally wouldn't have any objections. My request is very simple. I don't need any treasures. As long as Lan Qingyan kneels down and kowtows to me, I will let you go. How about it? Her understated words were full of playfulness and ridicule. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was full of indifference. She didn't care about any treasures. What she wanted was to make Lan Qingyan unhappy. As soon as this was said, almost everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to make such an excessive request. Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's previous performance, this didn't seem like something she would say. Chapter 2438. The cultivators of Limitless Palace looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. They didn't expect their young palace master to have such a domineering side. The other party was Lan Qingyan of the Lan family. Even the palace master had an uninterested attitude towards the Lan family. They didn't expect their young palace master to directly slap them in the face. They only felt that the relationship between their young palace master and Lan Qingyan was really predestined. From the moment they met until now, they were at each other's throats. If this continued, the hatred between the two parties would only grow deeper and deeper without any signs of easing up. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren were also dumbfounded. Shangguan Yingying always felt that she had a violent temper and would never swallow her anger. However, Di Beichen's wife usually had a very gentle appearance. She didn't expect her words to be even more domineering than hers at this time. Let Lan Qingyan kowtow and apologize? Lan Qingyan probably never dreamed that it would be such a request. The moment Lan Qingyan heard Bailey Hongzhuang's request, she completely exploded. Bailey Hongzhuang, you've gone too far. Even if we really fight, you may not be able to gain much. Such a request is simply impossible. Lan Qingyan's face was ashen. She was really angered to death. Even if she died here today, she would never let Bailey Hongzhuang humiliate her like this. Ouyang Etienne's face was also as gloomy as water. Bailey Hongzhuang's action was completely equivalent to rejecting his request. Instead, she used this point to humiliate Lan Qingyan. He couldn't help but have some doubts in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan should have known each other during the Battle of Zhuolu. He didn't know why the conflict was so deep, as if there was already enmity. If it was an ordinary person, even if there was a conflict between the two parties, it was impossible to make it to the point of no return. Facing Lan Qingyan's angry and hateful gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang was so calm that it was frightening. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged and sneered. Since you don't want to, then there's no need for this negotiation. Just do it. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately took out her azure glaze sword. Clearly, she was going to have a duel with Lan Qingyan. At this moment, everyone finally understood that Bailey Hongzhuang had no intention of letting Lan Qingyan off. She wanted to have a direct confrontation with Lan Qingyan. Lan Qingyan turned her head to look at Ouyang Etienne. At this moment, she no longer had any room to retreat. If she really kowtowed and apologized, she would never be able to raise her head in front of Bailey Hongzhuang in the future. Not only did this humiliate her, but it also humiliated the entire Lan family. Ouyang Etienne was also hesitant in his heart. The relationship between the Ouyang clan and the Lan clan was indeed very good, But if he really had to risk his life for Lan Qingyan, he had to consider it. If he were to lose his life here, he would never be willing to do so. However, if he abandoned Lan Qingyan at this time, it would be equivalent to letting Lan Qingyan die. At this moment, the light screen door flashed again. Everyone's gaze fell on the light screen door. They didn't know who was coming. If there was a team that was willing to help Lan Qingyan and the others, then the situation would be different again. However, when Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian saw who was coming, their faces turned ashen. Chapter 2439. Shirtian Pavilion. This was definitely the team that Lan Qingyan didn't want to see the most. If Shirtian Pavilion's team hadn't appeared before, how could they fall into such a situation now? Originally, their situation was already extremely bad when it was 2 against 3. Now that Shirtian Pavilion had appeared, it had become 4 against 2. If there was still a glimmer of hope before, now the situation was simply courting death. The worst thing was that this hall was completely sealed. Once they started fighting, they didn't even have a place to escape. In other words, they could only fight to the death here. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyan's heart turned cold. Her footsteps couldn't help but tremble. This was definitely the most difficult situation she had ever encountered. She didn't know what to do at all. Ouyang Etian's face also turned purple. Now, it was a completely dead end. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to take their lives, it was a simple matter. The cultivators of Lan family and Ouyang family were dumbfounded. They seemed to have seen their own future. From now on, they would never see the sun again. In fact, it could be said that 10,000 alpacas were galloping in their hearts. If this group of guys had appeared earlier and it showed that they knew Bailey Hongzhuang, they wouldn't have come up to provoke them at all. However, this group of guys only came out after they had provoked the conflict. They all suspected that this was specially arranged. Wasn't this deliberately tricking them? After Limitless Palace's cultivators saw that Shirtian Pavilion's team had also appeared, their expressions became very interesting. Was it destined that Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian would be unlucky today? Sure enough, Imo Yunjue also revealed a smile after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, you're also here. As soon as these words came out, all the cultivators present were dumbfounded at the same time. My God, isn't this the people of Shirtian Pavilion? Looking at this situation, Bailey Hongzhuang's relationship with Shirtian Pavilion is also very good. Who is this Bailey Hongzhuang? Why haven't I heard any news about her all these years? Bailey Hongzhuang seems to have appeared out of nowhere, but why do so many cultivators from different forces know her? Everyone was confused. This feeling made them feel as if they were completely outdated. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was familiar with so many forces, it proved that Bailey Hongzhuang had existed for a long time, but why didn't they know about it? Moreover, Shirtian Pavilion had always been mysterious and had never shown an extremely close relationship with any force. However, the attitude of the young master of Shirtian Pavilion towards Bailey Hongzhuang was completely different from others, which was enough to prove how close the two were. At this moment, everyone started to sympathize with Lan Qingyan. Lan Qingyan had poked a hornet's nest. However, no matter if it was before or now, it was Lan Qingyan who took the initiative to provoke her. It had nothing to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, they had clearly seen that Bailey Hongzhuang had been quietly cultivating and had no intention of looking for trouble. However, Lan Qingyan had directly hooted the moment she arrived, which caused this conflict to arise. Under such circumstances, even if it were them, they would not let Lan Qingyan go. After all, everyone had a temper. Chapter 2440. When the crowd saw this team, their eyes lit up. This was because this team was an extremely powerful existence among all the forces in the Shengxian continent. In every battle of vying for the throne, this team could almost always achieve excellent results. Moreover, the fact that they only appeared at this time had already proven their strength. This team was the Tiangang sect. Look, the identity card on Di Beichen's waist is still there, which means that he didn't lose in this competition. Could it be that he's the final winner? This Di Beichen's strength is really getting more and more powerful. In the early years when he obtained the blood aura inheritance, his fame was already very shocking. In these years, every time he appeared, he was stronger than the last time. He's the most powerful among our younger generation. The strength of the Tiangang sect has always been very strong. I heard that Di Beichen's degree of hard work and cultivation is also incomparable to ordinary people. Didn't you see that Di Beichen has never participated in the activities that we usually hold? Gazes fell on Di Beichen. The strange thing was that these gazes did not contain sarcasm or dissatisfaction. On the contrary, they were more of admiration and envy. Even if everyone present was a proud son of heaven, everyone still admired those cultivators who were extremely strong and had good character from the bottom of their hearts. This Di Beichen was one of them that everyone admired. As the young palace master of the Tiangang sect, he was unusually hard-working in his cultivation. He rarely showed off, but his improvement in strength was even more so. In these years, almost no one had heard any bad news about Di Beichen. Moreover, previously, Di Beichen left after being suppressed, and then suddenly emerged as a new force. His thunderous methods were also praised by the younger generation. The moment Lan Qingyan saw Di Beichen, she was completely stunned. Even if she only caught a glimpse of him in the past, she still remembered this face deeply. Even if a few months had passed, she had never forgotten this handsome face. The moment she saw Di Beichen, she was certain that this was the man she had seen in the Yu clan. She had thought that she would never have the chance to see him again in this lifetime. She never thought that they would meet again in the battle for dear pursuit. Plop, plop. Lan Qingyan's heart couldn't stop beating. This handsome face that she admired, this man that she couldn't forget for a long time, was actually Tiangang Zong's young lord. At this moment, Lan Qingyan's entire body was wrapped in excitement, as if she was stepping on the clouds. Her heart was jumping with joy. Tiangang sect, this kind of power was a very extraordinary existence. It was just that the Lan family and the Tiangang sect didn't interact much. However, the Tiangang sect had never been absent from any of the events held by the various forces in the Shengxian continent. They were always in existence that couldn't be ignored. If she could be together with the young sect master of Tiangang sect, presumably the entire family would not object. Lan Qingyan felt that after waiting for so many years, she had finally met the person she wanted to marry the most. This was the man who was worthy of her, Lan Qingyan. Compared to Di Beichen, this Ouyang Etian was obviously not enough. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but move a few steps away, subconsciously drawing a clear line between her and Ouyang Etian. Chapter 2441. At this time, Ouyang Etian was not in the mood to pay attention to Lan Qingyan's actions. As a man, when he saw Di Beichen, he couldn't help but feel a sense of jealousy in his heart. This man, whether it was appearance, background, or ability, was impeccable, and his degree of excellence was beyond people's reach. In fact, since Di Beichen obtained the inheritance of the blood refining tower a few years ago, he had already established his position that no one could surpass. Almost all the heirs present had gone to the blood-ground abyss when they were in the Crimson Realm in order to obtain the inheritance of the blood refining tower. For so many years, no one had succeeded, so everyone was accustomed to it. However, Di Beichen succeeded. The blood refining tower had existed for so many years, and there were only a few people who succeeded in obtaining the inheritance. Therefore, Di Beichen's position was unshakable. They had all passed through the blood refining tower, so they naturally knew how difficult it was to succeed. Even if they wanted to deny it, there was no room for denial. Therefore, everyone could only sigh in admiration. Di Beichen. Lan Qingyan muttered this name in her heart. Thinking back, when she went to the blood refining tower, she remembered this name. Tiangang Zong's young lord. She had always held a kind of admiration for Di Beichen, although she didn't know what Di Beichen looked like at that time. The strong were admirable after all. It was just that she didn't expect that the Di Beichen she admired would coincide with the person she admired. This was simply a great surprise. She kept looking at Di Baichun, hoping that Di Baichun's gaze would fall on her. After all, there were very few women in the younger generation who could compare to her in terms of reputation and appearance. At this time, Lan Xingyan hated Bailey Hongzhuang even more. However, if it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang and her contract beast that destroyed her arm, she should now be in a perfect posture in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. It's so lively here. Di Baichun smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. When he came out the holographic door, he immediately saw Bailey Hongzhuang. Although it had only been a short time, Di Baichun had a rough idea of what was going on. It seemed that the conflict between his wife and Lan Xingyan had erupted again. Young Palace Master Di, I am Lan Xingyan. Lan Xingyan looked at Di Baichun with joy. In the past, she had never come into contact with Di Baichun. Now that she knew, she naturally would not let go of this opportunity. She believed that Di Baichun must have some understanding of her. If Di Baichun could also have a good impression of him, perhaps the current situation could be resolved. Di Baichun originally wanted to walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, but was suddenly interrupted by Lan Xingyan. His heart was somewhat surprised. One had to know that he and Lan Xingyan had never interacted before. Young Lord Lan, what's the matter? Di Baichun said lightly. I have always admired young Lord Di's strength and character. Today, after meeting you, I would like to make friends with young Lord Di. Lan Xingyan's face rippled with a gentle and shy smile. This was the first time she took the initiative to greet a man, but it didn't feel forced at all. She only felt that her face was boiling and her heart was burning. However, as long as she, Lan Xingyan, liked someone, she would never let them go easily. Chapter 2442. Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised by Lan Xingyan's attitude. According to her understanding, Lan Xingyan and Di Baichun did not have any interaction at all. Why would Lan Xingyan take the initiative to contact Di Baichun now? As a woman, Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly see that Lan Xingyan liked Di Baichun. If not, with Lan Xingyan's personality, why would she reveal such a shy expression? Even when she was with Ouyang Yitian, Lan Xingyan did not have such an expression on her face. Master, what's the situation? Xiao He was also a little dumbfounded by the situation in front of her. Lan Xingyan's sudden action was really unimaginable. Could it be that this woman wants to hook up with Di Baichun? No matter how you look at it, she can't be compared to our master. Xiaobai could not help but say. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Xiren and the others were also surprised by Lan Xingyan's sudden action. Without thinking, they knew that Di Baichun was on their side. Could it be that Lan Xingyan's brain was damaged? She actually wanted to curry favor with him at this time? However, they were not anxious people. They might as well take this opportunity to see what Lan Xingyan was going to do. The disciples of Limitless Palace who did not know what was going on were a little worried. They were afraid that Di Baichun would help Lan Xingyan and the others. This situation was a little bad. Pei Yifan and the others looked at Di Baichun in astonishment. They were not unfamiliar with Di Baichun's appearance. Previously, when a young palace master was cultivating with them, they had seen Di Baichun. However, there was no news of him after that. Then, Imo Yunjue appeared. They thought that something had happened in between. After all, cultivators were also human. It was normal for lovers to change. However, now that Di Baichun had appeared again, and the young palace master's contract beast had said that she had a sweetheart, they had already guessed it in their hearts. However, if that was the case, then what was Lan Xingyan doing now? Di Baichun glanced at Lan Xingyan and said in a gentle voice, Young Palace Master Lan, this won't do. When these words came out, Lan Xingyan could not help but be stunned. She did not know what Di Baichun meant. She took the initiative to express goodwill, but Di Baichun actually rejected. Not only Lan Xingyan, the other teams were also a little. Logically speaking, since Lan Xingyan took the initiative to express goodwill, Di Baichun should not have rejected her. Tuza's words Tuz, A Baichun, is to Tuz's. At this time, Tienes, Success. And to Tuz to Tuz sect. Was sex SSSS Bachans SSS Bachun was helps Bachans. Hearing this, Lan Qingyan finally understood. Previously, she was wholeheartedly immersed in the joy of seeing Di Baichun and did not think of other things at all. At this moment, hearing Tian's reminder, she remembered this layer of relationship and could not help but feel somewhat depressed. In the past, she and Shangwan Yingying did not see eye to eye. She felt that Shangwan Yingying was jealous of her. However, there was no friendship between their Lan family and Baichun's sect, so even if there was a conflict, she did not care at all. However, she never thought that her sweetheart would be Di Baichun. Now that the situation had come to this, it was a little awkward. Chapter 2443. However, Di Baichun's following words stunned everyone present for a moment. Since young Lord Lan is my wife's enemy, she is naturally my enemy as well. It's impossible for us to be friends. Di Baichun's expression was cold and emotionless. His words were even colder and colder. Lan Qingyan snatched away everything that belonged to Hong Zhuang and made Hong Zhuang live such a painful life for so many years. He only hoped that Hong Zhuang would be able to take back everything that belonged to her as soon as possible. Towards Lan Qingyan, he only had disgust. Moreover, Lan Qingyan had already taken the initiative to find trouble with Hong Zhuang. He was already very dissatisfied that she wasn't able to appear by Hong Zhuang's side at that time. Now that both parties were gathered together, he wouldn't give Lan Qingyan any face. Hearing Di Baichun's words, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but look at Di Baichun in astonishment. Her mind couldn't understand what he meant. Di Baichun already had a wife, but there were only so many people present. Who could Di Baichun's wife be? Lan Qingyan was confused. Shangwan Yingying was Xiren's wife. It was impossible for her to have any relationship with Di Baichun. Could be Gu Zhiqin? But looking at Gu Zhiqin's appearance, she didn't look like someone who was in a relationship with Di Baichun at all. Finally, Lan Qingyan's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. If Shangwan Yingying and Gu Zhiqin weren't, then the only possibility left was Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyan wasn't the only one who thought so. Many people's gazes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. If that was the case, then Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was a little shocking. The next moment, Di Baichun gave a signal with his eyes. Xiao Feilin and the rest behind him all bowed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Greetings to young sect master's wife. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. However, during this process, many people realized what was going on. I know, this Bailey Hongzhuang is the rumored wife of Di Baichun. I was wondering why this name sounded so familiar. It was rumored that the woman from the Tian Gang sect who defeated the medicine sect in the pill refining competition was called Bailey Hongzhuang. That's right, it was her. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace. Suddenly, the way everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang changed. Previously, they had no idea when Bailey Hongzhuang had appeared. Now, they finally connected the dots. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang was the genius alchemist whose reputation had spread far and wide. He also didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang had such an identity. The words young sect master's wife made Lan Qingyan completely dumbfounded. However, the person whom all the Tian Gang sect cultivators were bowing to was obviously Bailey Hongzhuang. From the looks of it, Bailey Hongzhuang's existence in Tian Gang sect had already been acknowledged by everyone. The person whom she had admired for so long was actually Bailey Hongzhuang's husband? How is this possible? Lan Qingyan felt that the most fantastical thing in the world had happened right in front of her eyes. A strong sense of jealousy emerged in her heart. Why would a man like Di Baichun fancy Bailey Hongzhuang? Other than her outstanding looks, what else could Bailey Hongzhuang compare to her? Turning her gaze, Lan Qingyan only saw the happy and warm smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Her expression was extremely gloomy. Chapter 2444. After seeing the jealousy and disbelief in Lan Qingyan's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was even more certain that Lan Qingyan liked Di Beichen. If not, Lan Qingyan would definitely not have such an expression. From Bailey Hongzhuang's point of view, this matter was somewhat strange. Previously, when Lan Qingyan was with Ouyang Etian, she did not feel out of place. Moreover, she did not feel that Lan Qingyan had another sweetheart. However, the moment Di Beichen appeared, Lan Qingyan's expression changed. Could it be that Lan Qingyan liked Di Beichen from the beginning? It was just that they did not have any interaction. Bailey Hongzhuang could not understand, but she was too lazy to think about it. Lan Qingyan had snatched everything that belonged to her. Now, she was even coveting her man. However, she was no longer the powerless baby. It was impossible for Lan Qingyan to snatch anything from her. Di Beichen slowly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His handsome face was filled with concern and pampering. "Wife, is there anything you need?" As he spoke, Di Beichen's ruthless gaze swept towards Lan Qingyan. His meaning was obvious. If Lan Qingyan dared to hurt his wife, he would definitely not let Lan Qingyan off. Feeling the ruthlessness in Di Beichen's eyes, Lan Qingyan was also shocked for a moment. She could not help but take 2 steps back. Her heart was flustered. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly and shook her head. "Originally, someone wanted to find trouble with me. However, it was never easy to find trouble with me." As soon as he said that, all the cultivators present sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang's simple words revealed a strong sense of arrogance. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did indeed have the qualifications to be so arrogant. As the young palace master of Limitless Palace, the wife of Heavenly Dipper's sex young sect master, and at the same time, she had a very good relationship with him. Many people present did not have this kind of confidence. At the very least, now that they knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's background, no one had the intention to offend Bailey Hongzhuang. If he were to offend them, it would be the same as poking a hornet's nest. He would be in endless trouble. Not to mention other things, just the combination of Limitless Palace and Tiangang sect was not something that ordinary forces could deal with. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Lan Qingyan could only put on a gloomy face. If she could, she really wanted to find a hole to hide in. First, she failed to humiliate Bailey Hongzhuang and was humiliated by Bailey Hongzhuang instead. Now that she had finally met someone she liked, he turned out to be Bailey Hongzhuang's husband. She, Lan Qingyan, was a proud daughter of heaven since she was young. She had never envied anyone. Now that she was facing Bailey Hongzhuang, she really felt a sense of envy. Ouyang Etian did not speak at this moment. The disparity in strength between both sides was too great. No matter what method he thought of, it was useless. Most importantly, what Lan Qingyan did just now really made his heart cold. He knew that there was a certain gap between himself and Di Beichen. However, Lan Qingyan actually tried to curry favor with Di Beichen in front of him. This was simply not taking him seriously. As a man, the most important thing was face. He felt that at least just now, his face was completely trampled under the soles of her feet. As a man, he admitted that he could not be compared to Di Beichen. However, this kind of humiliation was still unbearable for him. Chapter 2445. When Xiren teased Di Beichen with a smile on his face. After not seeing Di Beichen for a while, the changes between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were really great. As a good friend of Di Beichen for many years, he actually only knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's identity as the young palace master of Limitless Palace after the Battle of Zhuolu. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang actually had a relationship with the Sun Moon Palace and the Heavenly Slaughter Tower, which was a little surprising. However, the only thing that didn't change between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang was their relationship. They were still as lovey-dovey. Di Beichen had now completely fallen in love with her and had completely become a slave to his wife. However, as soon as he appeared, the essence of protecting his wife was vividly displayed. At this moment, who didn't know how much he doted on Bailey Hongzhuang? Di Beichen looked at Wen with a smile. "At most, I won't drive you away the next time you come to my Tiangang sect." With that, Di Beichen glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Wife, what do you think?" It was as if he would do whatever Bailey Hongzhuang said. Everyone present was fiercely shown off by Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if they didn't understand before, at this moment, when they saw Di Beichen's doting appearance, they knew how much Di Beichen liked Bailey Hongzhuang. It should be known that Di Beichen had never shown such an attitude when he appeared before. Moreover, for so many years, Di Beichen had never been close to any woman, let alone acknowledge the other party's identity. Bailey Hongzhuang was the only person Di Beichen had acknowledged for so many years. Ying and I are good friends. Do as you see fit. When Xiren's face instantly stiffened, he sighed his heart that he really couldn't let the two women get too close. Now, he was going to lose his refuge in Tiangang's sect. Shangwan Ying gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. The friendship between women was that simple. When Lan Xingyan saw the intimacy and tacit understanding between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, she couldn't help but clench her fists. She felt like she was about to go crazy. Previously, Di Beichen had rejected her so cleanly, and now he was pretending to be so intimate with Bailey Hongzhuang. It was really abominable. However, no matter how angry Lan Xingyan was, there was nothing she could do. Now all the initiative was on Bailey Hongzhuang's side, and she could only passively accept it. Di Beichen handed the identity card to Bailey Hongzhuang and said with a smile, "Wife, this is your identity card. I'll return it to you now." Bailey Hongzhuang very naturally took the identity card and once again tied it to her waist. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but feel envious. Their identity cards had been taken away. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang's luck to be so good. The person who took her identity card was Di Beichen, and now he could return it to her. However, the next scene made everyone even more amazed. They saw Di Beichen take out a few identity cards from his Chinquan bag. "This is your husband's spoils of war for you." Looking at the identity cards in Di Beichen's hand, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips opened into an enchanting smile. To her, she didn't like to accept other people's gifts, except for Di Beichen, because Di Beichen's kindness to her was something she was willing to accept. "Since you're so sincere to give it to me, then I'll accept it." Chapter 2446. Lan Xingyan looked at the way Di Beichen doted on Bailey Hongzhuang, and her heart went crazy with jealousy. This identity tablet would affect the ranking of the battle for deer. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was Di Beichen's sweetheart, Di Beichen giving these identity tablets to Bailey Hongzhuang was too magnanimous. If she asked herself honestly, if it was Ouyang Yiqian, he would definitely not give these identity tablets to her. Just this point alone was enough to see the difference between the two. At this moment, Lan Xingyan really wished that she was the one that Di Beichen truly cared about. With such status, background, and strength, it was enough to become the perfect lover in any girl's heart. At this moment, she also understood that Mo Yunjue probably only liked Bailey Hongzhuang wholeheartedly. However, whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue, they were both one in a million candidates. Why would they like Bailey Hongzhuang? All along, Lan Xingyan knew that she had a lot of suitors. It was just that she felt that these suitor standards were not enough, so she did not have anyone that she liked. However, whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue, they were both men that could move people's hearts. She just couldn't understand, in what way was she inferior to Bailey Hongzhuang? Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's relationship was already so good, yet Mo Yunjue was still willing to protect Bailey Hongzhuang. Wasn't this a bit too strange? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was the only woman in the world? Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Lan Xingyan's face that was twisted with jealousy. Her heart also felt a sense of satisfaction. In the past, Lan Xingyan's parents were jealous of everything that her parents had, so they used all kinds of despicable means to snatch everything away. And now, Lan Xingyan was actually jealous of her like her parents. Perhaps this was really fate's arrangement. Young Lord Lan, the choice I gave you is still valid. Either you kneel down and kowtow to me and admit your mistake, or I will take your life. You choose. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking and contemptuous smile. Previously, Lan Xingyin was unwilling, but the current situation did not allow her to be unwilling. Hearing Bailey Hongshuang's choice again, Lan Xingyin's temple throbbed. Every time she heard it, it was a kind of humiliation. However, in the current situation, the opponent's strength was too strong. She had no choice. Come, come. D is young lord, your wife says words, Ars. Lord Yezes. However, Di Bei Chun shrugged his shoulders indifferently. No matter what my wife says, she is always right. I will always support her. Since young Lord Lan has offended my wife, you should pay the price. If it was me, I'm afraid you wouldn't even have the chance to choose. Di Beichun's voice was cold and ruthless. If it wasn't for Hong Zhuang wanting to personally take revenge, he would have taken Lan Xingyin's life long ago. Why would he wait until now? After everyone heard Di Beichun's words, they completely understood the extent of Di Beichun's love for Bailey Hongzhuang. This was completely unreasonable. There was no need for any reason. His wife was right. Anyone who went against his wife deserved to die. The standard of judgment was that simple. Lan Xingyin stared blankly at Di Beichun. She had always heard that Di Beichun was a fair person, but she never knew that Di Beichun had such a side to him. Chapter 2447. Now, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichun, their attitude was very clear. They were taking advantage of their power to bully others, but so what? When Xiren and Shangwan Yingying looked at Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. In their impression, this was not the style of Di Beichun and Shangwan Yingying. Di Beichun had always been elegant and tolerant. Bailey Hongzhuang was even more gentle and free. But from the current situation, could it be that there was some enmity between them and Lan Xingyin that no one else knew about? Among everyone, only Mo Yunjue understood all of this. This time, Di Beichun's attitude did not disappoint him. This woman, Lan Xingyin, had hurt Hong Zhuang for so many years. If it was him, he would do it even more thoroughly. However, no matter what, Hong Zhuang's mood was the most important. Lan Xingyin only felt that she was standing on the edge of a cliff. The familiar faces around her suddenly became unfamiliar to her, making her feel aghast. With this look, Lan Xingyin's gaze once again fell on Ouyang Etienne. She was not willing to lose all her dignity and confidence in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. If anyone could save her from this situation, then that person would definitely be her savior. However, Ouyang Etienne, who had been helping Lan Xingyin previously, was indifferent after feeling Lan Xingyin's gaze. Everything that Lan Xingyin had done previously had already made him lose the heart to help her. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang had been targeting Lan Xingyin from beginning to end. She did not have any demands on him. Since that was the case, he did not need to care anymore. Seeing the indifference on Ouyang Etienne's face, Lan Xingyin's feet almost stumbled. She had actually lost her last helper. The cultivators of the Lan clan could not help but glare at the cultivators of the Ouyang clan. They had always been allies. How could they turn against each other at this time? However, the cultivators of the Ouyang clan had the same expression as their young master. Not only did Lan Xingyin's previous actions reduce their anger, their hearts were also filled with displeasure. Now, their young master's actions had helped them vent their anger. In the past, Lan Xingyin had always treated their young master with indifference. They had thought that Lan Xingyin's personality had always been like this. However, the initiative that Lan Xingyin displayed towards Di Beichun just now was clearly not the case. Could it be that until now, Lan Xingyin had only been using their young master as a stepping stone? For a moment, Lan Xingyin was completely isolated and without help. From beginning to end, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a light and moving smile. Looking at Lan Xingyin's face that had undergone a wonderful transformation, she hoped that Lan Xingyin would be able to remember this feeling. Lan Xingyin, have you made your choice? Bailey Hongzhuang casually asked. Lan Xingyin raised her eyes and glared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her black pupils had now turned red like an angry lion. She tightly bit her lips until scarlet blood overflowed. In the end, she could only helplessly spit out 2 words, "I'll kneel." When she said these 2 words, Lan Qingyin only felt that the blood in her body was about to stop flowing. She had lived with the arrogance of a proud daughter of heaven for 22 years. Now, she had to take the initiative to abandon her. This kind of humiliation almost drove her crazy. A strong hatred rose in her heart. In the future, she will definitely return this humiliation to Bailey Hongzhuang in every possible way. Chapter 2448. Bailey Hongzhuang saw the familiar hatred in Lan Qingyin's eyes, but she remained indifferent. This hatred had been buried in their family's hearts for 19 years. If the hatred in Lan Qingyin's eyes was a seed, then the hatred in their family's hearts was a towering tree. Now, Lan Qingyin believed that she was the victim because she had experienced too little. However, it wouldn't be long before she would let Lan Qingyin familiarize herself with this feeling. Then kneel. Bailey Hongzhuang looked down at Lan Qingyin. Her pair of deep and bright eyes didn't contain the slightest bit of warmth. The 3 beasties also looked on coldly from the sidelines. This feeling made their hearts incomparably happy. Lan Qingyin's left hand clenched into a fist. She forced herself not to let the tears of humiliation overflow from her eyes. She was not willing to show any signs of weakness in front of this damned woman. She remembered Di Beichun for so long, but when they really met, Di Beichun actually treated her like this. Her pair of red eyes stubbornly and maliciously looked at the 2 faces that she hated. She would remember these 2 people and repay them 100 times in the future. Bang! In the next moment, Lan Qingyin suddenly knelt in front of Bailey Hongzhuang in front of everyone. Is this enough? Lan Qingyin clenched her silver teeth. Words that were filled with forbearance and anger jumped out from the gaps of her teeth. You haven't apologized yet. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold and indifferent, but it ruthlessly smashed into Lan Qingyin's heart. Lan Qingyin raised her head and glared fiercely at Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was too much. However, the indifferent and amused faces around her made her feel helpless. She could only endure this humiliation. I'm sorry. After saying this sentence, Lan Qingyin only felt that her entire body was about to become empty. She was not willing to continue staying in this place that made her suffer so much humiliation. Lan Qingyin, next time you see me, you better take a detour. Otherwise, the next time you lose your dignity, it's your life. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly threw down a sentence and then shifted her gaze, as if even spending a second on Lan Qingyin's body was a waste of time. Lan Qingyin saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had already started a chat with other friends. She had endured such a great humiliation and was completely ignored. Her entire body turned ice cold. She sized up the cultivators around her, only to find that everyone had already retracted their gazes, as if what had happened just now was just a good show. She had suffered all kinds of humiliation, but now she had become an existence that was ignored by everyone. How ironic was that? The most dazzling thing was the joyful smile on Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang's faces. At this moment, she no longer had any expectations for Di Beichun. She swore that she would make Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun fall into a state of eternal damnation. However, this hatred, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichun, did not care at all. Beichun, your strength has increased a bit during this period of time. When Xiren sized up Di Beichun, although he was not Di Beichun's opponent before, their cultivation was the same. Di Beichun's battle strength was very abnormal since he was young. In addition, he had the blood chi field. This battle strength was not something that cultivators of the same level could compare with. However, he felt that Di Beichun's cultivation had already surpassed his. Chapter 2449. Hearing this, Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and smiled in tacit understanding. The reason why their cultivation could improve so quickly was because of the existence of the desert world. If it wasn't for the extra time, they wouldn't have been able to improve so much. However, the Chaos Ring was too heaven-defying, and it wasn't suitable for more people to know about it. This was Di Beichen's selfishness. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to take any risks. That's to remind you to cultivate properly and not be lazy. Otherwise, you'll be left behind by me. Di Beichen's sexy thin lips curled up as he teased Xiren. When Xiren rolled his eyes, his expression filled with helplessness. Anyway, he couldn't figure out how Di Beichen cultivated. This cultivation speed was too heaven-defying. Fortunately, he didn't have any thoughts of competing with this perverted guy. Otherwise, he would be angered to death. Shangguan Ying looked at Di Beichen and Xiren with a smile. They grew up together and had a good relationship. Even though their strength couldn't be compared to Di Beichen, she knew that Xiren was serious about cultivation. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to be the young palace master of Limitless Palace. Seeing you in the Battle of Zhuolu really surprised me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I only knew that I would be participating in the Battle of Zhuolu with this identity 3 months before it started. When she said this, Shangguan Ying and Xiren were a little surprised. Looking at the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang probably became the young palace master of Limitless Palace not long ago. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was indeed outstanding. It was definitely a wise choice for the palace master of Limitless Palace to choose Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen did not continue the conversation with Xiren. Instead, he looked at Mo Yunjue beside him. Regarding Mo Yunjue, Di Beichen had originally rejected this fellow's appearance, but now his thoughts had clearly changed. Young Master Mo, you've helped Hongzhuang once again. I must properly thank you. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Mo Yunjue's expression was indifferent. Don't worry about it. He had volunteered to help Hongzhuang, so he didn't need any thanks. As for Di Beichen, his feelings were also very complicated. The two men looked at each other and didn't say much. Everything was conveyed without words. It was because they loved the same woman that they interacted with each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's charming face bloomed with a bright smile. Her gaze landed on Mo Yunjue's identity token. Yunjue, did you also win until the end? In her opinion, there should be a final result for this competition. However, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue both had their identity tokens. This was a little strange. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. Because we tied in the end, so this is the result. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. Ever since the competition ended, she didn't know much about Mo Yunjue. She didn't expect Mo Yunjue's strength to rise so quickly. He was indeed a proud son of heaven. When Xiren and the rest found out that Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue had tied, their hearts were filled with surprise. This meant that among all the contestants, the two of them were the strongest. In addition, both of them liked Bailey Hongzhuang. This relationship was really complicated. Chapter 2450. After Lan Qingyan saw that everyone no longer cared about her existence, she led her team to the depths of the main hall. Now, she only wanted to be alone for a while. It would be best if everyone disappeared from her sight. Ouyang Yiqian also led his team to the other side. Just as he expected, Bailey Hongzhuang's target was Lan Qingyan. It had nothing to do with him. Putting himself in danger for such a Lan Qingyan was truly an unwise move. Wife, had you been staying here since you came out? After resolving the disturbance caused by Lan Qingyan, Di Beichen also began to be concerned about the current situation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Since the end of the competition, everyone has been gathered here. The surroundings are sealed and there is no place to go out. I think we should wait for everyone to come out before there will be other tests or competitions because the time for the Battle of Zhuolu hasn't arrived yet. After listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren and the others had a better understanding of the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang's words were indeed reasonable. If there are no accidents, Mo Yunjue and I should be the last ones to come out. Di Beichen's eyes, which were as deep as the sea, were filled with thoughts. Since the time wasn't up yet, there must be other things waiting for them. The previous Battle of Zhuolu had never ended early. They were only halfway through now. Everyone couldn't help but think in their hearts. Now that everyone had come out, why hadn't there been any changes in the main hall? However, not long after everyone pondered, a fluctuation suddenly came from the depths of the main hall. Seeing this, everyone became alert. It seemed that they would soon know what was going to happen next. Following the tremors in the main hall, the earthquake-like feeling came again. Fortunately, after experiencing the previous incident, everyone was not as nervous as they were the first time. They only looked into the distance, wanting to know what was going on. However, the intensity of the tremors that followed far exceeded everyone's expectations. The entire hall collapsed with a loud bang. Rubble continued to fall, as if a huge disaster was about to engulf everyone at any time. Some cultivators with weaker mental fortitude couldn't help but scream. Everyone tried their best to stabilize their bodies. Under such circumstances, there was no way for them to understand the situation. Di Beichen leaned against the wall with both hands, holding Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms to ensure that Bailey Hongzhuang would not be hurt. "Wife, are you afraid?" Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. "As long as you're by my side, I'm not afraid." In the crook of Di Beichen's arms, she only felt an indescribable sense of security. It was as if even if the sky were to fall, she would be able to face it calmly. Lan Qingyan was originally in the depths of the main hall. She didn't expect such a thing to suddenly happen. She immediately screamed and ran out. However, when she saw Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang being lovey-dovey with each other, a strong sense of jealousy and unwillingness emerged. Bailey Hongzhuang, that hateful woman, what right did she have to enjoy all of this? Di Beichen's heartfelt concern and doting stung her eyes, fueling her anger. She wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang and end their happiness. Chapter 2451. After the hall regained its tranquility, everyone finally relaxed their tense hearts. Di Beichen confirmed that there was no danger before letting go of Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "There shouldn't be any more disturbances now." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. Her exquisite jade-like face revealed a bright smile. "Let's go and see what's happening in the depths of the main hall." Hearing that, Di Beichen naturally held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked towards the back of the main hall. When Limitless Palace's cultivators saw that their young palace mistress and Di Beichen had such a good relationship, they all felt happy for Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen was truly one in a million. Everyone walked towards the back of the main hall at the same time, wanting to know what they were going to do next. Only, when everyone saw the situation at the back of the main hall, everyone's face revealed a look of surprise. They saw a huge stone tablet erected at the back of the main hall. On the white stone tablet, there was a mysterious and complicated picture. Just by looking at it, one would have a shocking harvest. That's a primal chaos tablet. Seeing this scene, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue exclaimed at the same time. When they said that, all the cultivators present were shocked. Primal chaos tablet. That was the famous primal chaos tablet. When Bailey Hongzhuang knew that it was a primal chaos tablet, she couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. Primal chaos tablet. It was a law born from heaven and earth. Comprehending the primal chaos tablet would greatly increase a cultivator's strength. Only, this primal chaos tablet was a treasure. Usually, one wouldn't have the chance to see it. They didn't expect that there would be a primal chaos tablet here. This was too shocking. When the three beasties found out about the primal chaos tablet, they couldn't help but look at each other. This Battle of Zhuolu was really extravagant. They even had a treasure like the primal chaos tablet. I finally understand why so many cultivators want to take part in the Battle of Zhuolu. This kind of opportunity isn't something that can be found in the outside world. Some cultivators couldn't help but sigh. They weren't successors, so they couldn't compare to the cultivation resources of the successors. If he hadn't participated in the battle of chasing deer, he probably wouldn't have been able to see a primal chaos tablet in his life. After everyone saw the primal chaos tablet, they couldn't help but want to go closer to take a look. However, the moment they got closer, they realized that there was an invisible barrier in front of them, making them unable to move an inch. The distance here is still so wide. Why can't we get closer? Could it be that they are protecting the primal chaos tablet, so they don't want us to get close? Everyone was confused and did not understand the situation. Could it be that the Battle of Zhuolu had already ended, and the remaining time was for them to comprehend the primal chaos tablets? If that was the case, it was not unacceptable. Just as everyone was discussing, a message suddenly appeared in the air, allowing everyone to understand everything. Study the primal chaos tablet. Every time a cultivator comprehended a level, they would be able to take a step forward. Based on each cultivator's comprehension level, a certain number of identity cards would be awarded. Seeing this, a look of understanding appeared on everyone's faces, and many people's hearts were once again rekindled. Originally, they thought that they had already lost the battle of vying for supremacy. Who would have thought the new opportunity would appear in front of them? Chapter 2452. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest glanced at each other and sat down on the ground to look at the primal chaos tablet. This was an extremely mysterious power, containing the laws of heaven and earth, as well as the understanding towards the usage of elemental energy. The mysterious diagram had endless transformations, and in everyone's eyes, it was a different existence. Everyone sat on the ground excitedly, as though they were injected with chicken blood. The chance to comprehend the primal chaos tablet was something that could only be chanced upon. Originally, everyone felt that the remaining 1.5 months was a little long, but now they were hoping for more time. As long as they could comprehend more, it would be very beneficial to their future cultivation. Lan Xinyan's heart also had a trace of excitement. Everyone thought that she was Bailey Hongzhuang's defeated opponent, but in reality, she was only in such a state because she was ambushed by a demonic beast. In terms of strength, Bailey Hongzhuang was not her opponent. Not only that, in terms of talent, she was confident that Bailey Hongzhuang could not compare to her. She wanted to use this to turn the tables. The moment everyone saw the primal chaos tablet, it was as though they were completely sucked in. That mysterious power filled their minds. Just by looking at it a few times, the amount of information was extremely shocking. Suddenly, a scream rang out. Everyone turned their gazes, only to see that man covering his eyes, blood flowing out from the gaps of his fingers. Everyone's hearts trembled when they saw this scene. A treasure like the primal chaos tablet, the amount of energy it contained was too shocking. Even with their cultivation, if they stared at the tablet for too long, they would suffer a backlash. The energy would cause their brains to explode. Wife, you cannot comprehend the primal chaos tablet for too long. Once you feel that your brain cannot take it, you must immediately stop. Do you understand? Di Beichun hurriedly reminded Bailey Hongzhuang. They were all immersed in the joy of seeing the primal chaos tablet and neglected the things they needed to pay attention to. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Don't worry, I know what to do. The other cultivators also paid more attention after this lesson, although looking at it a few more times was good, but they did not want to get injured because of it. In that case, there would be even less time. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at it for a few minutes, and then closed her eyes to comprehend the obscure and mysterious information. These seemingly chaotic patterns had a kind of amazing power. It was as if the more they looked at it, the more they understood about the source of elemental energy. No wonder they say the primal chaos tablet is a gift from heaven and earth. Its strength is truly shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a dazzling light. Her lips curled into a happy smile. She had gained a lot from participating in the Battle of Zhuolu this time. The three beasts were equally shocked by the primal chaos tablet's effects. This tablet was of great help to them as well. The treasures nurtured by the heaven and earth are truly incredible. Not long after I looked at this tablet, I felt like I was about to break through. White Lion's face was full of emotions. His cultivation had improved quite a bit recently, but he was still a distance away from a breakthrough. However, after looking at the Primal Chaos tablet for a while, it felt that its bottleneck had loosened. If he continued to cultivate like this, he believed that it wouldn't take long for him to break through. This is really a good opportunity. We have to seize it. Chapter 2453. Seeing that Bai Shi, Xiao He, and Xiao Ba were able to reap such rewards, Bailey Hongzhuang's mood was extremely good. You guys must not spend too much time comprehending this tablet, otherwise there will be a negative effect. Bailey Hongzhuang reminded the three beasties. According to her previous understanding, if a cultivator or demonic beast tried to comprehend the Primal Chaos tablet beyond their ability, they would very likely explode from the mysterious energy and become a fool. That would be terrible. So everyone had to act according to their ability and not be greedy. The three beasties nodded, understanding the severity of the matter. Master, don't worry, we will take note of our limits. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Right now, all the tablets we see are mysterious and complex diagrams that are constantly changing. After we comprehend some of them, some of the diagrams will be fixed. This is progress. Di Beichen and the rest were surprised when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation. Most of them only knew of the existence of the tablet, but they didn't know how to judge their own comprehension. At this moment, after Bailey Hongzhuang's introduction, their hearts were clear. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to have some understanding of the tablet. Shang Guaningying's eyes shone with excitement and shock. In the past, I only thought that the tablet only existed in legends and didn't really understand it. It said that the tablet is formed from many pictures that contain the laws of heaven and earth, but because we don't understand them, we see many complicated pictures. After we comprehend a part of it, we can see one of the pictures clearly. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. The tablet had a long history, and 1,000 years ago, it was a treasure that everyone chased after. However, this thing could only be chanced upon and not sought, and would only appear in some secluded places. She only had some understanding after listening to her family's elders, but seeing the situation of the Primal Chaos tablet today, it shouldn't be wrong. Hearing that, when Xiren and the rest revealed looks of understanding. So it's like that. Mo Yundua looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. His deep eyes flashed with a complicated light, and then disappeared. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the tablet for a while, before closing her eyes to comprehend it. Such a thing couldn't be forced. This kind of origin power had a feeling of returning to simplicity. It was as if something that was originally very complicated suddenly became simple in front of this origin power. It was as if the clouds and fog had been lifted to reveal the sun. While Lan Qingyan was comprehending, she was also paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang stop comprehending for a while, she was mocking. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation level was lower than hers. The time she spent looking at the tablet naturally couldn't be compared to hers. In the entire Lan family, no one could compare to her in terms of comprehension, and because of that, she was able to sit on the young master's seat from young until now. The entire hall fell into silence. Everyone was fully immersed in their comprehension and cultivation, unwilling to waste even the slightest bit of time. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were even more so. They were all people who would be in closed-door cultivation for a long time, and this kind of cultivation wasn't boring at all to them. A day passed, and suddenly a wave of energy surged out from the crowd. Everyone couldn't help but shift their gazes. Chapter 2454. When everyone saw that the first to break through was Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast, their faces were filled with shock. I didn't think that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast would also have a blue realm cultivation. You really can't judge a beast by its appearance. Everyone looked at White Lion in shock. Previously, they didn't pay much attention to it. After all, many of them had contracted beasts. However, they didn't expect White Lion to be so strong. A blue realm contracted beast. How many resources would it take to cultivate it? And now, this contracted beast had broken through. This was really enviable. When Lan Xingyan saw that the contracted beast she hated the most was actually breaking through, the hatred in her eyes grew even stronger. If it wasn't for this despicable contracted beast, she wouldn't have ended up in this state. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at White Lion in surprise. White Lion's cultivation speed was extremely fast. It was really a good helper for her. The elemental energy in the hall was very dense. It was enough to replenish the elemental energy that everyone needed to break through. Not long after White Lion broke through, a few other cultivators began to break through. These are usually cultivators who weren't far from breaking through or had been stuck at a bottleneck. Now that they had gained some insights, it was as if they had been enlightened. Their cultivation was finally able to break through. Bailey Hongzhuang was now a Blue Realm Level 4 cultivator. It hadn't been long since she broke through. Hence, she wouldn't be able to break through in a short period of time. She carefully comprehended the Primal Chaos Tablet's power. The vast diagrams appeared in her mind, giving her different hints. Gradually, Bailey Hongzhuang felt as if she had walked into a vast universe. Countless stars sparkled around her. This was the most original power of heaven and earth. Her body seemed to be enveloped by a chaotic yet clear power. It was indescribably comfortable. This was an unprecedented feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that the power in her body had disappeared. Her entire body was like cotton, as light as air. She walked among the stars, feeling the power of the origin. She was free and unrestrained. When Di Beiqin and company saw Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, they were all stunned, because they discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was fixated on the Primal Chaos Tablet. One had to know that everyone would basically look away after an hour of meditation. After a long time, everyone's brain capacity was somewhat unable to bear it. But Bailey Hongzhuang just stared straight at the tablet, as though she was completely immersed in it. Beichun, Hongzhuang has been staring at this tablet for 2 hours already. Will something happen to her? Shangwan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. She had only watched for a little more than an hour before she couldn't bear it anymore. However, Hongzhuang had been watching for so long. It would be terrible if something went wrong. Di Beichen's handsome brows furrowed. His deep-as-the-sea eyes were filled with worry. He felt that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have entered a very strange state, because Bailey Hongzhuang's expression didn't seem to be uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, she was extremely happy. I feel that Hongzhuang seems to have entered a very strange state. It's best if we don't disturb her first. Di Beichen pondered and said, "This feeling seemed a little like an epiphany?" Epiphany was a very strange state that belonged to cultivators. It could only be encountered and not sought. Chapter 2455. When Mo Yunjue saw Bailey Hongzhuang in such a state, his handsome eyes flashed with contemplation. Hongzhuang's current state is very rare. I'm afraid she's comprehending something. No one is to disturb her. Mo Yunjue's voice was gentle, but it contained a warning. If she was disturbed and left this state, it would be Bailey Hongzhuang's greatest loss. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Di Beichen and the rest looked at each other. They had the same thought. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't in danger, they wouldn't allow anyone to disturb this strange state. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were sitting in the first row and they had lowered their voices when speaking, the other practitioners didn't know that Bailey Hongzhuang had entered into such a state. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang entered into a state of comprehension, Di Beichen and the rest discovered that Xiao He and Xiao Bai on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders were also staring at the Primal Chaos Tablet. Their expressions were exactly the same as Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's comprehension was shocking. Who would have thought that her contracted beast comprehension was also so shocking? Di Beichen's eyes were filled with admiration and joy. He understood Hong Zhuang's comprehension very well. In his opinion, Bailey Hong Zhuang was a natural practitioner. Her talent in cultivation was extremely shocking. If Bailey Hong Zhuang hadn't endured everything that she shouldn't have and had started cultivating early like Bailey Hong Zhuang, then Bailey Hong Zhuang's cultivation would probably be the strongest amongst them. At this point, he definitely wasn't exaggerating. Even after wasting so much time previously, Bailey Hong Zhuang's current speed was extremely terrifying. After the Battle of Zhuolu ended, it would not be long before Bailey Hong Zhuang's cultivation would catch up to Lan Qingyan's. By then, it would be the day when Bailey Hong Zhuang would go to the Lan family. Now that the day was getting closer and closer, Di Beichen's heart was filled with anticipation. He looked forward to the day when Bailey Hong Zhuang would be the center of attention. He wanted to see her take back everything and no longer have any regrets. Time passed by slowly. In this silent hall, everyone seemed to be unable to feel the passage of time. Every minute and every second was something they cherished. Bailey Hong Zhuang's epiphany took longer than Di Beichen and the others had expected. Baisher had successfully broken through to Blue Realm Level 2 and returned to Bailey Hong Zhuang's side. However, when everyone saw White Lion who had broken through, their gazes could not help but change. Look, doesn't that contract beast have the word king on its forehead? It was unknown, which cultivator exclaimed. Immediately, everyone's gaze landed on Baisher. The word king on White Lion's forehead was usually covered by Bailey Hong Zhuang. However, after the breakthrough, the word king was revealed again. A king on its forehead. Could this demon beast be a beast king? I heard that a beast king looks like this. Furthermore, this demon beast is so powerful. Perhaps it really is a beast king. Wang Yujing's eyes were filled with shock when he heard everyone's guesses. Previously, when he fought with Bailey Hong Zhuang, his contract beast was trembling. He couldn't understand it. His contract beast's level wasn't weak. Over the years, it had helped him solve a lot of problems. It was his left and right arm in battle. However, after fighting with White Lion, it had completely admitted defeat. It was a little too strange. Chapter 2456. After Lan Qingyan heard that White Lion was a beast king, she couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. Beast king? Are you kidding me? Lan Qingyan laughed hysterically, her eyes filled with ridicule. A beast king is a powerful existence among the monsters. How could it be a contracted beast of a cultivator? Are you all stupid? A beast king was the king of all monsters, the most powerful existence among the monsters. Even if a beast king was in its infancy, its strength was still extremely terrifying. For so many years, there had never been any news of a beast king being contracted by a human. As a noble beast king, it was impossible for it to submit to a cultivator. Hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the people who were originally in shock regained their senses. Just as Lan Qingyan said, a beast king couldn't be contracted by a cultivator. They might have been overthinking it. Indeed, this should be another monster, right? The cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. If this was really a beast king, then Bailey Hong Zhuang's strength was too terrifying. If she could contract such an existence, then how much effort did she have to put in the beginning? They couldn't imagine how terrifying it was. Beichen, what kind of beast is Hong Zhuang's contracted beast? When Xiren and Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Bailey Hong Zhuang's contracted beast performance was too outstanding, making them somewhat curious. Although they felt that the possibility was very small, looking at White Lion's appearance, they really felt that it was very similar to the legendary Beast King. Hearing this, Di Beicheng glanced at White Lion and said, "That's right, White Lion is a Beast King." Back then, Bailey Hong Zhuang had always hidden White Lion's identity, because she was worried that she wasn't strong enough to protect White Lion. But now, Bailey Hong Zhuang was no longer the same as before. She no longer needed to worry as before. She already had the ability to protect White Lion and had enough confidence that no one would dare to covet White Lion. Hearing this, Xiren and Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but gasp. It seems that they have underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. She was even able to form a contract with a heaven-defying existence like the Beast King. This was enough to show just how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was. If it was a person who didn't have enough talent and strength to form a contract with a Beast King, even if the Beast King couldn't resist, the contract wouldn't be established. Mo Yunjue also glanced at Bai Shi. Back then, he had made a deal with Bailey Hongzhuang because of Bai Shi. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang had contracted the Beast King, but she didn't know the Beast King's identity. Now that he thought about it, it was really interesting. Are you saying that White Lion is really the Beast King? Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but exclaim. This news was too shocking. She had never thought that she would be able to meet a Beast King one day, let alone a contracted one. No wonder White Lion was so powerful and could bite off Lan Xinyan's arm. Everyone who had just calmed down their suspicions couldn't help but be stunned after hearing Shangwan Yingying's exclamation. So it seems that White Lion is really the Beast King? Oh my god, it's really the Beast King. How did Bailey Hongzhuang form a contract with it? I knew that Limitless Palace's Palace Master was so powerful. The successor he found is definitely not simple. Chapter 2457. Lan Xinyan, who was originally ridiculing the crowd, couldn't help but be stunned after seeing this scene. She immediately said, "This is impossible." It was impossible for a Beast King to submit to a cultivator. This was common knowledge. In the long history of Shangxian continent, there had never been a record of a Beast King being contracted. How could Bailey Hongzhuang do it? Even if it's to raise Bailey Hongzhuang's status, you wouldn't go so far as to spread such a groundless rumor, right? Lan Xinyan couldn't help but mutter, but her voice wasn't soft. Her mood was very complicated. On one hand, she wanted to confirm that this was impossible. On the other hand, she didn't dare to directly clash with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After all, the previous scene had already made her lose face. She didn't dare to repeat it again. However, seeing everyone putting such a big hat on Bailey Hongzhuang's head and letting Bailey Hongzhuang steal the limelight, she felt a little dissatisfied. This sentence undoubtedly asked the doubts in everyone's heart. They had only heard of a Beast King, but had never seen its true appearance. Therefore, even if they felt that White Lion and a Beast King were somewhat similar, it was difficult to be certain. Shangwan Yingying frowned and looked at Lan Xinyan with dissatisfaction. Lan Xinyan, do you think everyone is like you who has nothing better to do? Is there need to lie to you about this kind of thing? Even if White Lion isn't a Beast King, its strength is still much stronger than your contracted beast. Who would make such a meaningless joke? As Bailey Hongzhuang's friend, she was also very happy to see Bailey Hongzhuang have this kind of opportunity to steal the limelight. At their position, stealing the limelight was a way to increase their influence. They didn't expect Lan Xinyan to be like a ghost that wouldn't go away. She would run out to question everything. Following Shangwan Yingying's words, everyone's expression couldn't help but change a little. These words were extremely persuasive. With Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, there was indeed no need for her to use her status as a contracted beast. Since even Di Beichen said so, then this matter was most likely true. What kind of existence is a Beast King? Such a thing has never happened in the Shangxian continent. Lan Xinyan couldn't help but say. Shangwan Yingying looked at Lan Xinyan mockingly. Aren't all the impossibilities in this world created by cultivators? Doesn't that mean that it will be impossible in the future? Once these words came out, Lan Xinyan couldn't help but choke. She didn't know what to say. White Lion raised its head proudly and looked at the crowd proudly. It was a true Beast King. In the past, it had been hiding its identity because its master had always kept a low profile. But now there was no need for it to hide. It was the Beast King. When the cultivators from Limitless Palace found out about White Lion's true identity, they were completely dumbfounded. They had always felt that White Lion's identity was extraordinary. They never imagined that White Lion's identity would be so extraordinary. Di Beichen and the others did not intend to explain further. No matter what Baisher's true identity was, or whether others believed it or not, it did not affect them at all. As for Bailey Hongzhuang, she had been in a state of epiphany and was completely unaware of what was happening in the outside world. 3 days later, Xiao He and Xiao Bai finally came out of their state of epiphany. When Shangguan Yingying and the others saw that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had regained consciousness, they immediately wanted to ask what had happened. Chapter 2458. When they saw this scene, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren felt helpless as well. Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beasts were about to break through. Xiao He and Xiao Bai didn't dare disturb Bailey Hongzhuang when they realized that they were about to break through. Instead, they quietly jumped off Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and went to the other side to break through. After such an epiphany, they were very clear about how great the benefits of this epiphany were. They were still quite a distance away from breaking through, but they didn't think that they would be able to break through now. They believed that their master's gains would be even greater than theirs. When the other two Blue Realm auras burst out, everyone was speechless when they saw that the ones about to break through were Bailey Hongzhuang's other two contracted beasts. That contracted beast from before was a Beast King, so it's understandable that its strength is heaven-defying. Then, what species are these two Yao beasts? Why are they so strong? A cultivator couldn't help but be speechless. Wasn't this a little too shocking? Wang Yujing didn't want to say anything else. It was no wonder that his contracted beasts had admitted defeat before the battle even began. It was a good thing that the two fur balls hadn't joined in at the time. Otherwise, his contracted beasts wouldn't have survived. Thinking of this, Wang Yujing couldn't help but thank Bailey Hongzhuang for showing mercy. After all, he had spent a lot of resources and effort to nurture his Yao beasts to their current level of strength. These two Yao beasts are even weirder than the Beast King. I've never seen powerful Yao beasts that look like that. I've never seen Yao beasts like that either. Putting aside the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang's Yao beasts are powerful, I really can't understand their origins. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had undoubtedly become an expert in contracting Yao beasts in everyone's eyes. They had no idea how Bailey Hongzhuang had managed to nurture such contracted beasts. The amount of resources and energy needed to cultivate a contract beast of this level was already terrifying. Bailey Hongzhuang had cultivated 3 of them. How'd she do it? Shangguan Yingying and Ziren couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Beichen, what species are Xiao He and Xiao Bai? Now, they only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang really couldn't be judged by her appearance. Many things that they usually overlooked now seemed to be not to be underestimated. Di Beichen glanced at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, but what he said made Ziren and Shangguan Yingying feel helpless. I don't know. Not to mention that he didn't know. Even Bailey Hongzhuang herself didn't know. These two furballs that came out of the Chaos Ring were completely different from ordinary Yao beasts. Even if they flipped through all the books, they couldn't find any records of them. Back then, he and Bailey Hongzhuang had spent a lot of effort on this matter, but in the end, they could only helplessly give up. Seeing that Di Beichen was serious and didn't seem to be joking, Shangguan Yingying and Ziren could only helplessly sigh at Bailey Hongzhuang's luck. If ordinary cultivators saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai, they probably wouldn't be interested in them at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had managed to cultivate them to such an extent. It was really amazing. Lan Xingyan didn't say anything after seeing this scene. Previously, she didn't think much of Xiao He and Xiao Bai, but now it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang's 3 contracted beasts weren't simple goods. Chapter 2459. Time passed slowly. Xiao He and Xiao Bai successfully broke through and stood guard beside Bailey Hongzhuang with Baisher. 10 days had passed, and Bailey Hongzhuang didn't show any signs of coming out of that state. Everyone couldn't help but worry. Luckily, Bailey Hongzhuang's breathing was stable and didn't show any signs of uneasiness, so everyone could only stand guard by the side. Only, no one noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang's primal chaos ring was flickering with specks of light, intertwining with the primal chaos tablet, and Bailey Hongzhuang became the link between the two. In this period of time, there were many cultivators breaking through, and there were many cultivators trying to advance, but in the end, it was all to no avail. Because comprehending the primal chaos tablet was too abstract. Every time everyone thought they had comprehended quite a bit, they would realize that it was just their own thoughts when they took a step forward. Originally, everyone thought that comprehending the primal chaos tablet wasn't a difficult thing, but after trying it out, everyone completely understood. To comprehend the primal chaos tablet, it was definitely not easy. Bailey Hongzhuang only knew that she had entered an extremely strange state. Her body and mind were greatly improved. The increase in cultivation might not be huge, but she could feel countless amounts of star energy flowing through her body, transforming her body. This kind of transformation was more effective than any kind of medicinal pill. It was as if even his aptitude had been improved. Not only that, she could feel the star energy flowing into the primal chaos ring in her hand. When she first saw the primal chaos tablet, she had a familiar feeling in her heart. And now that she thought about the primal chaos ring, she finally understood everything. Primal chaos tablet, primal chaos ring. Both were named after primal chaos. There must be a certain connection between them. Ever since she got the primal chaos ring, she had never seen anything related to the primal chaos ring, and now that she finally saw it, it was a powerful existence like the primal chaos tablet. No wonder the primal chaos ring was a god tool. Just from this connection, one could see how extraordinary it was. She didn't know where she was going in this sea of stars, and could only walk forward aimlessly. She didn't know how far she had walked. This vast universe was endless, as if she would never reach the end. Unknowingly, half a month had passed, and the cultivators in the hall still didn't have any progress. The cultivators who had originally harbored hopes of obtaining an identity token had lost all hope at this moment. There was only half a month left until the end of the Battle of Zhuolu. Even if they used up all of this time, they might not be able to achieve a breakthrough. However, at this moment, Deep Beichen and Mo almost at the same time. After sensing each other's actions, they couldn't help but look at each other, and then a smile on their lips. It seemed that there were many similarities between the two of them. As Deep Beichen and Mo Yunjue stood up, everyone who was cultivating or comprehending couldn't help but look at the two of them. Ever since they started comprehending, Deep Beichen and Mo Yunjue had never moved. Could it be that the two of them wanted to try and advance? Chapter 2460. Contrary to what everyone thought, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue both took a step forward very smoothly. At the same time, 3 identity cards appeared in front of Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue out of thin air. Obviously, taking a step forward would give them 3 identity cards. Di Beichen and Shang Wanning took the identity cards in front of them and put them into their Chinquan bags. Then, they sat down again and began the second round of comprehension. When everyone saw that Di Beichen and Shang Wanning had succeeded, they couldn't help but open their mouths wide. They didn't expect the two of them to succeed so easily. It seems that Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue are equally matched in terms of strength and talent. They actually managed to comprehend at the same time. Sure enough, there is still a big gap between geniuses. No matter how we try, we fail. They succeed as soon as they try. No wonder we can't compare to them in terms of cultivation. Comprehension ability was extremely important on the path of cultivation. Cultivators with high comprehension would often get twice the result with half the effort when cultivating. On the other hand, cultivators with low comprehension would need to put in more effort to reach the same level. It was precisely because of this that cultivators with high comprehension had always been envied by others. When Xiren and Shang Wanning couldn't help but look at each other, It seemed that these two guys were really destined to be rivals. Whether it was identity, background, strength, or appearance, these two were extremely outstanding existences. Usually, it was impossible to determine the winner or loser. If there was really a winner or loser, it could only be said that Di Beichun had won Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. However, the winner or loser couldn't be determined in such a way. In the past, Mo Yunjue had never appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Therefore, everyone didn't know much about Mo Yunjue. After this battle of Zhuolu, everyone thoroughly knew how powerful the young master of the heaven-devouring tower was. Just as the commotion calmed down, another figure suddenly stood up. Everyone turned their gaze to the white figure. However, when they saw the person clearly, everyone's expression became somewhat complicated. This person was none other than Lan Qingyan. Lan Qingyan arrogantly glanced at the crowd. She was too lazy to bother with these guys. Even though her performance in the Battle of Zhuolu this time was extremely poor, in terms of comprehension, she was not inferior to others at all. The most important thing was she felt that this tablet seemed to have some sort of connection with her, which was why her comprehension speed was faster than others. Lan Qingyan shouldn't be here to play to the gallery again, right? After everything that had happened, the image of an expert that Lan Qingyan had established in everyone's hearts had completely disappeared. Instead, it was that claptrap that left a deep impression on everyone. Perhaps Lan Qingyan was doing this on purpose to attract everyone's attention. Ouyang Yiqian couldn't help but look at Lan Qingyan with a complicated expression. He had known Lan Qingyan since young and naturally knew that Lan Qingyan's perception wasn't bad. However, comprehending the primal chaos tablet was indeed not a simple matter. Whether Lan Qingyan could really do it, he wasn't certain. The next second, Lan Qingyan attempted to take a step forward. However, contrary to everyone's expectations, Lan Qingyan actually succeeded. When Lan Qingyan saw the 3 identity tablets in front of her, a thick smile appeared on her face. At this moment, she finally turned the tables. Chapter 2461. Lan Qingyan proudly glanced at the crowd and then haughtily retracted her gaze. She wanted to let everyone know that even if she, Lan Qingyan, failed miserably this time, her talent and potential were not to be underestimated. Among the cultivators present, many of them had been defeated by her. Lan Qingyan is the young lord of the Lan clan and the inheritor of the Rainbow Pearl. Her ability is not to be underestimated. Bailey Hongzhuang hasn't made any moves until now. Looks like in this aspect, Bailey Hongzhuang is not Lan Qingyan's opponent. Lan Qingyan has been famous for a long time. Moreover, I heard that every time, the Lan clan's Rainbow Pearl possessor is a genius. This is the reason why the Lan clan has always been standing strong. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. The wind had changed a lot. Previously, Lan Qingyan was bullied so badly that no one felt anything. Now that they thought about it carefully, Lan Qingyan was ultimately not an easy person to deal with. After Lan Qingyan turned the tables, the Lan clan's cultivators who were originally covered in dirt all revealed smiles. This was the glory that belonged to their Lan clan. Look at how proud Lan Qingyan is. If Hong Zhuang wasn't in this state, she would definitely be stronger than Lan Qingyan. Shang Guanying looked at Lan Qingyan unhappily. Normally, she couldn't stand Lan Qingyan's arrogant and proud look. That was why she was in conflict with her. Every cultivator who participated in the battle for deer chasing was a powerful cultivator. Only Lan Qingyan was unbelievably arrogant. When Xiren patted Shangguan Yingying's shoulder, "Why are you angry with her? Based on her situation, no matter how good her performance is now, she won't have good results in the battle for deer chasing. Moreover, Hong Zhuang hasn't even started to perform." Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying nodded her head in satisfaction. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang must be fated with the primal chaos tablet for her to be able to enter this state. Otherwise, why couldn't others enter this state? Lan Qingyan proudly turned around to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and was prepared to mock her. However, She saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was fixed on the primal chaos tablet, as if she didn't even notice her existence. Lan Qingyan couldn't help but frown. She had been sitting at the back and didn't know that Bailey Hongzhuang had already entered this strange state. "Stop pretending. I'll see when you can comprehend it." Lan Qingyan coldly snorted and then turned around to continue comprehending the primal chaos tablet. She wanted to regain all the dignity that she lost. After Bei Chun and Mo Yunjue saw that Lan Qingyan was also enlightened, they sighed in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan could be said to be destined enemies, but in their eyes, no matter how good Lan Qingyan was, she could not be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang. When the three beasts saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel anxious. They didn't want their master's limelight to be stolen by Lan Qingyan. This was something that they had painstakingly snatched back. How could they let it be snatched away? It was a pity that their master had entered this state and they didn't know when she would regain her senses. Bailey Hongzhuang walked forward aimlessly. She found that as the power of the stars continued to pour in, the power from the primordial chaos ring was getting stronger and stronger. She could have broken through long ago, but this power had been accumulating. Chapter 2462. Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was like a traveler in the desert who had finally found her way. No matter what was in front of her, she had to go and investigate. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately quickened her footsteps and kept getting closer to the front. She wanted to know what was in the primal chaos tablet that attracted her. This was a very long journey. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had already used her fastest speed, she still walked for a very long time. Finally, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a ball of dazzling light in front of her. The moment she saw this light, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. In front of her was a dazzling rainbow light. It was like a rainbow god pearl. It was dazzling and exceptionally dazzling. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood why she would see such a star. It was because these stars were also dazzling with rainbow light. Could it be that the rainbow god pearl and the primal chaos tablet were related? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with deep astonishment. All along, she only knew that the rainbow god pearl could help cultivators increase their cultivation speed and increase their strength. As the Lan family's heirloom, Bailey Hongzhuang had always felt that the rainbow god pearl was extremely mystical. Only, she had never thought much about the reason. She only thought that the Lan family was blessed by the heavens, which was why they had such an heirloom. If I can enter this world, then can Lan Qingyan also enter this world? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think. Lan Qingyan had snatched away her rainbow god pearl. Now that she was the owner of the rainbow god pearl, she should be able to come here too. Looks like there was really an ill-fated relationship between them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the huge ball of light in front of her. It was like a rainbow god pearl that had been magnified countless times. Her heart was filled with emotions. Suddenly, a surge of energy shot from the huge ball of light onto her body. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately discovered that this was an extremely familiar power. It was exactly the same as the power of the Rainbow God Pearl, but it was much stronger than the power of the Rainbow God Pearl that she possessed. The mysterious power intertwined with the Rainbow Divine Pearl in Bailey Hongzhuang's body, and the rainbow light spun around her like ribbons, making it hard for people to see clearly. Under this huge force, Bailey Hongzhuang could not resist at all. She could only accept it passively. 7-colored energy flowed through her body and finally gathered on her 7-colored divine pearl. Gradually, she discovered that the power of the rainbow divine pearl in her body was constantly increasing and sublimating. It was as if it had met its main body and was rapidly growing. This discovery made Bailey Hongzhuang exclaim endlessly. Could this be the secret of the Lan family's inheritance? Was all of this related to the Primal Chaos Tablet? Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know how Lan family's #1 person obtained the Rainbow God Pearl, but she was incomparably certain that person definitely had a huge connection with the Primal Chaos Tablet. Maybe this primal chaos tablet was placed here by the Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and calmly absorbed this energy. She knew that this energy was extremely beneficial to her. It could even shorten the time she needed to go to the Lan family. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was calmly cultivating, the cultivators in the hall felt a vigorous energy explode from Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Chapter 2463. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the hall, there had been no movement. Almost everyone present had achieved a breakthrough in their cultivation, except for Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that they knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was only at level 4 of the Blue Realm, everyone's expression became a little more interesting. Previously, when Lan Xingyan broke through, everyone knew that she had broken through from level 7 of the Blue Realm to level 8 of the Blue Realm. Almost everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was on par with Lan Xingyan's, or even slightly stronger than Lan Xingyan's. However, this aura could not be faked. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually so much weaker than Lan Xingyan. Since there was such a huge difference in their strength, how did Bailey Hongzhuang defeat Lan Xingyan? For a moment, everyone could not figure it out. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation is only at level 4 of the Blue Realm. But why was there such a huge commotion when she broke through? I don't know. The fluctuation was a little shocking, but her cultivation is indeed at level 4 of the Blue Realm. I really can't figure it out. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang's combat strength is much stronger than her cultivation? No matter how much stronger she is, she can't possibly defeat a cultivator who is 3 or 4 levels stronger than her, right? Everyone shook their heads. Although it was possible to fight with someone who was at a higher level, it was impossible to do so if the level was too high. However, there were many cultivators present who had fought with Bailey Hongzhuang before, so they did not find it strange at all. Bailey Hongzhuang has the blood aura. It's normal for her to fight with someone who is at a higher level, a young master from an aristocratic family said slowly. When he had fought with Bailey Hongzhuang, he had seen Bailey Hongzhuang use the blood aura. He had also found it unbelievable. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were a couple, he felt that this matter was much easier to accept. As soon as this was said, the cultivators who were unaware of the situation could not help but widen their eyes. This news was too shocking. The elemental energy in the surrounding air surged madly towards Bailey Hongzhuang's body. The dense elemental energy was so dense that it seemed to have solidified as it continuously poured into her body. When Lan Xingyan saw Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. This situation was really shocking. Even when she broke through to the 8th level of the Blue Realm, there wasn't such a terrifying movement. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough so strange? The weirdest thing was, ever since she took a step forward, every time she turned back to look at Bailey Hongzhuang would look at the tablet with a burning gaze, as though she had never shifted her gaze. Although she didn't know what had happened, she had a bad feeling in her heart. Boom! Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, she had broken through to Blue Realm level 5. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to stare at the tablet as though nothing had happened. Even Di Beichun and the others couldn't help but feel puzzled after seeing this situation. They didn't know what kind of strange state Bailey Hongzhuang had entered, so they couldn't determine what was going on. 3 days later, Bailey Hongzhuang broke through again. Her cultivation level had broken through from Blue Realm level 5 to Blue Realm level 6. After witnessing Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough speed, everyone was shocked. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to increase her cultivation level by 2 levels. She had surpassed everyone's cultivation speed. In the blink of an eye, there were only 10 days left until the end of the Battle of Zhuolu. Chapter 2464. With these 6 identity tablets, plus the 3 identity tablets they obtained the first time, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue obtained a total of 9 identity tablets. Looking at the two's gains, everyone was envious. This time, the strongest person in the battle of vying for the throne would definitely be Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue. Not only that, when Xiren and the other talented cultivators also successfully crossed the first step. From this situation, everyone could determine the difference between the inheritors and normal cultivators. This was because those who successfully comprehended were mostly inheritors. However, there were also some talented cultivators who successfully comprehended. On the second day, after Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue successfully comprehended the second picture, Lan Qingyan also successfully took a step forward. Lan Qingyan felt that comprehending the Primal Chaos Tablet was much easier than comprehending other things. Originally, she thought that her comprehension speed was already fast enough. She didn't expect Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue's comprehension to be so high. Although her heart was unwilling to admit it, Lan Qingyan also understood that Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue's status was so high. It was really inseparable from the two people's cultivation talent. Luckily, the other cultivator's speed couldn't be compared to hers. This made her feel better. After all, she was the only girl who comprehended to such a degree. As for Bailey Hongzhuang, she couldn't be bothered to find out what kind of state Bailey Hongzhuang was in. At least, she hadn't comprehended anything yet. There were only 7 days left. Once the time was up, Bailey Hongzhuang would have no chance. Originally, she didn't have a single identity tablet, but now she obtained 9. Although her results weren't outstanding, at least she wouldn't be at the bottom anymore. The three beasties and Di Beichen couldn't help but worry when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang immersed in such a state. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's perception, comprehending the Primal Chaos Tablet shouldn't be a problem. Bailey Hongzhuang had already obtained quite a number of identity cards. Coupled with the identity cards she had obtained here, her ranking was definitely quite high. However, if Bailey Hongzhuang was always in this state, she would miss this opportunity. No matter what, Hongzhuang being able to raise her cultivation by 2 levels here is not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang's gentle voice was filled with a little sigh and helplessness. Although the result was a little unsatisfactory, compared to the others, Bailey Hongzhuang still gained a lot. I'm just curious about what kind of state Hongzhuang has been in all this time. It seems to be different from the state Xiao He and Xiao Bai were in previously. According to Xiao He and Xiao Bai's description, they had entered a state of enlightenment. It was like being enlightened. Their cultivation had opened up a whole new world. That was why they had broken through so smoothly. If Bailey Hongzhuang was also in enlightenment, this enlightenment time was a little too long. Also, logically speaking, enlightenment should be withdrawn when a cultivator breaks through. Bailey Hongzhuang had already broken through twice, but she didn't seem to have any intention of withdrawing from this state. So it shouldn't be enlightenment. I feel an aura similar to the Primal Chaos Tablet from Hongzhuang's body. Di Beichen's deep eyes flashed with a light of thought. His voice was heavy and hard to fathom. Chapter 2465. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Shangguan Yingying and Xiren's eyes were filled with astonishment. Similar aura to the Primal Chaos Tablet? That's not possible, right? When Xiren's face was filled with disbelief. What kind of existence was the Primal Chaos Tablet? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang had entered a strange state, she shouldn't have the same aura as the Primal Chaos Tablet, right? However, after hearing Di Beichen's words, Mo Yunjue nodded with a serious expression. I have the same feeling too. Once he said that, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Since Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue had the same feeling, then it couldn't be wrong. Lan Qingyan originally wanted to eavesdrop on what Di Beichen and the rest were saying. However, Di Beichen and the rest were obviously guarding against her, so she couldn't hear a thing at all. Unknowingly, it was already the end of the Battle of Zhuolu. Tomorrow was the time for everyone to leave. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue finally succeeded in reaching the 3rd step on the last day. and once again obtained 9 identity tablets. The two of them seemed to have telepathy. Every time they comprehended, it was at the same time causing everyone to be speechless. However, they also knew that it was impossible to determine a winner between the two of them. Lan Xinyan's progress was already unable to keep up with Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue. She only hated that she didn't have enough time. If only she had a few more days, she would have 9 more identity tablets and completely overturned her original disadvantage. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. At this time, Lan Xinyan still glared fiercely at Ouyang Etienne, who was in the second row. She would never forget how Ouyang Etienne had abandoned her. When she returned to the Lan family, she would settle the score one by one. After Ouyang Etienne felt Lan Xinyan's glare, he didn't have any thoughts of responding. He really wasn't worried that the Lan family could do anything to their Ouyang family. Beichun, Hong Zhuang still hasn't recovered from that state. The Battle of Zhuolu is going to end tomorrow. What should we do? Shangwan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be with her until now. Now, most of the cultivators had already taken a step forward, but Bailey Hongzhuang still remained in the periphery. Speaking of which, this was truly a terrible situation. Di Beichen furrowed his brows and pursed his thin lips. There's nothing we can do when the Battle of Zhuolu ends. Everyone will appear in the center of the Battle of Zhuolu, and Hongzhuang's state will be forcefully interrupted. This was the setting of the Battle of Zhuolu for many years. No matter what the cultivator was doing, as long as it was time to end, everything would stop. When Xiren sighed, "I hope Hongzhuang can wake up today. Otherwise, who knows what kind of effect it will have on Hongzhuang if it's forcefully interrupted." Gu Jiqin was also worried, but this kind of thing was completely beyond their scope of understanding. That night, many cultivators couldn't help but feel impatient. In their minds, they were constantly thinking about their ranking based on the number of identity cards they had obtained. Tomorrow was the end of the Battle of Zhuolu. Even if they worked hard to cultivate tonight, they wouldn't be able to make much progress. "Xiao Bai Shi, do you think Master really won't wake up today?" Xiao He frowned. It was really unwilling to give up such a great opportunity. Chapter 2466. It was already late at night, but the main hall was still bright. Just as everyone was either cultivating or bored to death, suddenly, a shocking aura exploded from Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Feeling this shocking aura, everyone's gaze couldn't help but be attracted to Bailey Hongzhuang. In this 1.5 months, Bailey Hongzhuang has already broken through 2 levels. Is she going to continue breaking through? I really don't understand what Bailey Hongzhuang is doing. She hasn't made any progress in comprehending the tablet, but her cultivation speed is extremely shocking. I really don't understand. I feel that comprehending the tablet will increase our realm, but it doesn't completely help our cultivation. Why is Bailey Hongzhuang's performance so different from ours? No matter what, I'm really envious. The cultivators were all discussing. At their current cultivation level, it wasn't easy to increase their strength by 1 level. However, in a short 1.5 months, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength increased by 3 levels. How could they not be envious? Lan Xinyan's expression became complicated when she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to break through again. She was only at Blue Realm level 8, but Bailey Hongzhuang was about to break through to Blue Realm level 7. Previously, there was a difference of 4 levels between them. Now it was rapidly shrinking. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang had the blood aura field. She was afraid that she would have to be more careful if she fought with Bailey Hongzhuang head-on. For the first time, Lan Xinyan felt a strong sense of threat in her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang had now become an existence that could threaten her. This wasn't a good thing. Di Beichen and the rest smiled when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to break through again. This was extremely good news. When dawn was about to arrive, Bailey Hongzhuang finally broke through to Blue Realm level 7. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. There was still a rainbow light flowing in her eyes, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Hong Zhuang, you're awake. Shangguan Yingying immediately noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's movements. She had been counting the time, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang would wake up soon. Yingying. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and couldn't help but stretch. She had been in the same position for such a long time that her body was a bit stiff. Hongzhuang, it's great that you're awake. The Battle of Zhualu is going to end tomorrow. We were really worried that something might have happened to you. Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang could wake up, everything would be fine. Wife, how are you feeling? Di Beichun turned to ask Bailey Hongzhuang. I'm fine. Sorry for making you worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint and calm smile. She didn't expect that she would wake up on the day when the Battle of Zhualu was about to end. In fact, she didn't even know how long she had been in the vast starry sky. She was immersed in the changes in the Chaos Ring and the Rainbow Pearl. Now that she was out, she realized that time had passed quickly. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang's face was rosy and didn't look uncomfortable at all, Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue were relieved. Chapter 2467. If it was before, Lan Xingyan had no choice but to be afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others due to her isolated and helpless situation. But now that the Battle of Zhualu was about to end, the Lan clan would come to welcome her once the Battle of Zhualu ended. By then, she wouldn't need to be afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Therefore, Lan Xingyan's current confidence was sufficient. Hearing Lan Xingyan's words, Shangguan Yingying and the others couldn't help glaring at Lan Xingyan. Lan Xingyan definitely touched the pot that didn't boil. During this period of time, they couldn't help but feel sorry for Bailey Hongzhuang. If she hadn't fallen into that strange state, Bailey Hongzhuang's current comprehension level would definitely not be worse than Lan Xingyan's. The three beasties looked at Lan Xingyan with disgust. This woman was really annoying no matter what time it was. Bailey Hongzhuang then shifted her gaze to Lan Xingyan. Her exquisite, jade-like face revealed coldness and indifference. Lan Xingyan, I didn't expect you to like paying attention to me so much. Once these words came out, Lan Xingyan's face couldn't help but stiffen. She then snorted coldly. Don't flatter yourself. I just saw that you were so arrogant before, but now you only have this result. I think it's funny. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly and asked in return, Who told you that I only have this result? Lan Xingyan was left speechless by this question. At this time, could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang could still make a comeback? Bailey Hongzhuang had just woken up, and she was already in a conflict with Lan Xingyan. Everyone was happy to see this and wanted to know who would gain the upper hand this time. In my opinion, Lan Xingyan and Bailey Hongzhuang will continue to fight in the future. I'm afraid the enmity between these two people is a dead knot that can't be untied. Actually, I think this is pretty good. Usually, there isn't any girl who can challenge Lan Xingyan. But ever since Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, this is the first time I've seen Lan Xingyan make a fool of herself in public. Do you still remember Lan Xingyan's attitude when she saw Di Beichun? I'm afraid there's already a grudge between these two women, and the reason is Di Beichun. No matter when, the gossipy hearts in everyone's hearts could not be dispelled. In the midst of these discussions, the love triangle between Lan Xingyan, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Di Beichun had already been vividly imagined by everyone. TSK, Bailey Hongzhuang, don't force yourself. I know it's hard for you to accept this result, but you look really pitiful when you pretend to be fine. Lan Xingyan shook her head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with pity. The ridicule in her eyes became more and more obvious. Hearing Lan Xingyan's arrogant and haughty words, many people present couldn't help but frown. These words were really unpleasant to hear. Lan Xingyan, don't tell me you want to die in this battle for the deer. Di Beichun's deep eyes were filled with a bone-chilling light. The threat and warning in his words couldn't be more profound. Hongzhuang had just woken up, and he hadn't properly cared about Hongzhuang's situation. This Lan Xingyan had already started to ridicule him time and time again. Did she treat him as if he didn't exist? Following Di Beichen's words, the cultivators present couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Di Beichen's words were really domineering. Chapter 2468. Although Lan Qingyin's strength was not bad, in front of Di Beichen, Lan Qingyin was definitely not his opponent. Just as Di Beichen had said, as long as Di Beichen wanted to take Lan Qingyin's life in this battle of Zhuolu, Lan Qingyin would not be able to survive until the moment she left. After hearing Di Beichen's words, the originally arrogant Lan Qingyin's face couldn't help but turn ashen. She could only swallow the words that she was about to say. She could only glare angrily at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that the other party had the advantage in numbers, she was no match for them. Hence, she could only swallow her anger. Sure enough, a slut who doesn't listen to a more straightforward warning thinks she's so great. Shangguan Yingying looked at Lan Qingyin's face that had turned black from holding back her anger. She could not help but smile. Recently, this Lan Qingyin was like a housefly, always buzzing around people's ears. It was so annoying. Di Beichen has become more and more powerful recently. Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with worship. Di Beichen's words had extinguished all of Lan Qingyin's arrogance. If Master did not want to personally finish off Lan Qingyin, Di Beichen would have already taken Lan Qingyin's life, Bai Shi said lazily. Some deep grudges could only be resolved with one's own hands. The reason why Di Beichen had tolerated Lan Qingyin was because of this. Only when Hong Zhuang defeated Lan Qingyin in front of everyone in the Lan family and gave those Lan family members who were optimistic about Lan Jingquang's family a slap in the face, would it be time for Bailey Hongzhuang's family to regain their dignity. Seeing that Di Beichen was so protective of her, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face became brighter. The Battle of Zhuolu is indeed about to end, but isn't it not over yet? As soon as she said this, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang doubtfully. They didn't know what she meant by this sentence. Lan Qingyin's face was also filled with disbelief. She didn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could overturn the heavens in this last hour. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and walked forward without hesitation. Instantly, everyone's eyes were focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang also comprehended the Primal Chaos Tablet? Bailey Hongzhuang successfully took the first step, and 3 identity cards appeared in front of her. Seeing this scene, an ominous premonition emerged in Lan Qingyin's heart. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang not only had a breakthrough in her cultivation during this period of time, she had also comprehended quite a bit of the Primal Chaos Tablet? If that was the case, then wouldn't her gains here not be comparable to Bailey Hongzhuang? Luckily, Bailey Hongzhuang had only taken the first step, and she was now on the second step. Bailey Hongzhuang should not be able to catch up to her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's next action directly shattered Lan Qingyin's fantasy. Because after Bailey Hongzhuang kept the 3 identity cards, she did not hesitate to take the first step again. Similarly, it was extremely smooth, without any obstruction. Bailey Hongzhuang's charming face was filled with a clear and moving smile, and once again kept the 6 identity cards into her bag. Seeing this, the faces of Di Beichen and the others were full of smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance at the moment really gave them a big surprise. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.